universities in the state of Maharashtra and was established in 1962. At present, the university is a home to 43 departments. The university started functioning with 34 affiliated colleges and about 14,000 students and 5 postgraduate departments on its campus. Today, the number of affiliated colleges is 293 and 43 postgraduate departments on the campus with a total of 2.50 lakh students. About Department of Sociology. It was established in Shivaji University, Kolhapur during the academic year 1970-71. It offers MA and PhD courses. Right from the establishment of the department, it is actively engaged in organizing state level, national, and international level seminars and conferences on various themes. Speaking about the UGC scheme for persons with disabilities. The Persons with Disabilities Act 1995 states that persons with disabilities should have access to education at all levels. In the higher education sector, the University Grant Commission, that is the UGC, is supporting universities to undertake special effort to empower persons with disabilities. About Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, Shivaji University Kolhapur is a new multidisciplinary teaching and research center established in April 2007 under the 10th plan of the UGC. The center has planned to carry out research and teaching in the area of social exclusion, discriminatory studies, and inclusive policies. I request Dr. Pratibha B. Desai, Associate Professor in the Department of Sociology and Coordinator of UGC Scheme for Persons with Disabilities, SUK, to address the conference and to convey the welcome note.
Welcome to all of you. First, respected keynote speaker, Professor Sujata Manman, Professor and Head of the Department of Special Education, SNDT, University, Mumbai, and Professor M.S. Deshmukh, the Dean of Faculties of Humanities and Director of Internet Quality Assurance Cell, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Dr. Professor Jagan Karade, the Head of Department of Sociology, as well as the Director of the Exclusion Center for Exclusion and Inclusion Policies, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and my dear colleagues, P.S. Pawar Madam, Abhijit Oswal Madam, and my dear scholars, session coordinators, and resource persons, and teachers, paper presenters, on the behalf of this conference. First, I welcome all of you. And you know, as well as the Shivaji University is the prime institute in the state of Maharashtra as well as in the India. And under the Shivaji University, there are many departments as well as the chairs and centers. And just already the anchor has given the just brief introduction of our university as well as our scheme and department. Just I want to highlight Shivaji UGC scheme for center, UGC scheme for person with disability. This is the one of the merged scheme implemented by UGC University Grant Commissions in the 12th plan. And Shivaji University got 2017 up to the extension, and this year also university got the extensions for this particular scheme. Under this scheme is as well as it is a merged scheme, but this scheme is working as a disability unit for the Shivaji University. Under this scheme, we have implemented many programs, awareness programs, as well as the job fair, and we have formulated one of the policy for persons with disability, and this policy is based on the 2000 RPD Act. And in this backdrop, that in this year, under this scheme, we have decided to take the national conference. And such a proposal was to be put in the advisory committee, and the Honorable Vice Chancellor has given the quick permissions to conduct the this conference, as well as the committee was to be formed. After that committee, we have put four themes, main four themes, but we have put one of the themes, that is NEP 2020 and persons with disability in the higher education. And with the permission of this committee, Professor Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor P.S. Patil sir and other committee members have confirmed this scheme, because this scheme was to be just we all of know the this NEP is to be the coming, and many universities including SHIVAJI University is also implementing the NEP National Education Policy. And all of you, we are not to be expert, but we have to know some about the NEP, and that in concern with the NEP, how the persons with disability has to be addressed, their issues or their problems, or their how the higher education is to be circulated or it is to be formulated in this NEP particularly. And to this know the persons with disabilities and NEP. And so in this backdrop, this seminar or this conference was to be organized, and this is the that means this is the introductions of the brief seminar conferences. And these conferences has the many sub themes. Particularly, first theme is to be the categories type of disabilities, because 2016 Act and 1995 Act is to be having the types of different types of the disabilities, and with the resource persons will be addressed those all things. Next, many of them unaware about the laws, policies and programs of the disabilities, because only the disabled person must be aware. That is not to be good, important. Everyone should be know about the disability, and because there is the attitude, particular attitude concern with everywhere. Since we are implementing many programs, we are facing the attitudinal problem that people are thinking that disability means there is only it is concerned with the disabled people, not with the other people. But this is not to be the, it is the inclusive education, and everyone should be aware about the laws or policies, because everyone should be having they have to be all the stakeholder of the particular. And third theme is particularly the NEP. What is the NEP? And what are the points concerned with the NEP? And fourth theme is the NEP and persons with the disability. These are the sub themes of our seminar particularly. And next one is to be the resource person. Entire this 2 days conference is addressing the NEP and persons with disability. And the entire session is to including inaugural sessions. We have the one session NEP and accessibility in higher education. Second session is particularly, it is to be delivered by Kolle Madam, Tata Institute, and second session is to be the Professor of Law Department, Dr. Sanjay Jain, and third session is to be the paper presentations. And next day is also we have the sessions of particularly NEP and persons with disability and paper presentation. And particularly about to speaking the paper presentations, we got it is in the hybrid mode. So we got many papers out of the Maharashtra, nearby 5 to 6 states, including Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Karnataka, as well as many other states. They are presenting their papers concerned with the above themes and nearby the disability themes. And particularly it is because of the hybrid mode, many of the paper presenters, papers and resource persons are to be online as well as the offline. And second day we have received 42 papers, and out of that 42 papers, nearly 40 papers are to be presented on this concern theme. And so this is the brief introductions of our conference, which is to be going to be held 2 days. And valedictory address is to be addressed by the Veera Gupta, NUP Professor, New Delhi. And just and with this brief introductions, I want to welcome our today's keynote speaker, because this day is to be we are trying. That means this process is to be being 3-4 months, and many keynote speakers. And I have contacted the madam. Madam told me that I am ready to come. But when we have searched for the traveling mode, then it is for very inconvenience to the Kolhapur, particularly flight. And ma'am is to be insisting online. But because of us, ma'am has come for the offline with many problems and obstacles. We have to welcome with ma'am with the big hand of the class. And on the behalf of these three departments, I welcome ma'am heartily because we have to be accept our invitations to come for the offline with this journey from Mumbai to Kolhapur, because ma'am is coming to the first for this conference, and ma'am is insisting that in her entire career she has first traveled by the traveling, that is to be the travels, because there is no any convenience mode, and because of us she has taken to the pen for to come here and to address the keynote address. On the behalf of our three departments, once again welcome, ma'am, welcome. And next one to be today's president, our dean and internal quality assurance fellow, Deshmukh sir is to be here. And on the behalf of all of us, I welcome sir, welcome for this program. And our department HOD is with always being with us, and he's giving very courageous and inspiring to conduct every program for every time. On the behalf of these three departments, I also welcome Professor Jagan Tarade sir, as well as the Director of Exclusion Inclusion. I welcome all the resource persons, those who are online and offline mode. I welcome all the teachers, paper presentation from the various colleges of the Shivaji University, as well as the some 2-3 persons from the Pune, Sarvade sir and other madam is has to be come from the Pune affiliated colleges, as well as the Pune University. Some of them are coming from Sangli, Miras and other nearby states, and many of them are present in the online. I welcome all those paper presenters, resource persons, and our students, research scholars, our colleagues, all my colleagues, and all organizing committee. I welcome once again, and thank you. And
Thank you, ma'am. Requesting all the dignitaries to come forward for the lighting of the lamp. And now for the felicitation of our honorable guest, requesting Professor Dr. M.S. Deshmukh to felicitate our keynote speaker, Professor Sujata Bal with a memento and book. Requesting the HOD of Sociology Department, Dr. Jagan Karade, to give the memento to Professor Dr. M.S. Deshmukh. I request Professor Dr. M.S. Deshmukh to give the memento to Dr. Jagan Karade. Requesting Dr. Jagan Karade to give the memento to Dr. Pratibha Desai. Now, as a sweet gesture, I request Sri Yuvraj Mitari to present a memento to Dr. Pratibha P. Desai. Requesting Dr. Pratibha S. Pawar, Associate Professor in the Department of Sociology, SHIVAJI University, Kolhapur, to introduce the guests of today's event.
Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, conference participants, and student friends. It gives me pleasure to introduce the chief guest and keynote speaker of the national conference, Professor Sujata Bal, and president of this function, Professor M.S. Deshmukh. Dr. Sujata Bal is the professor and head of Department of Special Education, SMDT Women's University, Mumbai. She is trained psychoeducationist and teacher educator. She is actively involved in teaching, administration, research, and training teachers in special education for 3 decades. She is registered guide for PhD in special education. Professor Bhan has conducted extensive research in special education in national and international projects. Her area of specialization is psychology and visual impairment. She has developed a standardized tool, functional skill inventory for the blind, for the functional assessment of children with vision loss. She has written and edited assessment of children with vision loss. She has written and edited several books. She has developed course material for special education courses at graduate and postgraduate level for various open universities like Indira Gandhi Open University, Bhoj University, YCMOU, and for diploma courses offered by RCI in collaboration with University of Melbourne and also for Mauritius Institute of Education. Her research work has been published in international and national peer-reviewed journals. She is empaneled as a visiting member for many national academic bodies like Assessor for NAC, RCI, and NCT. She is member of advisory board of DEGSN NCRT. She has served as a member of various committees for special children of Government of Maharashtra.
Professor Bhan is consulted by various state and central government institutes like NCERT and Rehabilitation Council of India for development of policies and curriculum for education of children with special needs. She uh, is a board member of India Inclusive Research Network. She has been part of research projects conducted by Perkins School for the Blind, USA, UNICEF, UNESCO, British Council of India. She has received UGC Educational Exchange Scholarship for doctoral research at Mauritius in 2005, International Fellowship Sweden in 2012. She was invited by University of Macerata, Italy for an academic program in 2019. With this brief introduction of the keynote speaker of the conference, I introduce President of the inaugural program of the conference, Professor M.S. Deshmukh. Presently, Professor Deshmukh is working as a Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Director of Internal Quality Assurance Cell, I-12 of the Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Uh, he is economics graduate and his research specialization is agricultural economics and monetary economics. He is having more than 25 years of teaching experience. His academic experience includes in charge director of Center for Innovation, Incubation and Linkages of Shivaji University, Kolhapur, coordinator, Master of Rural Studies, coordinator, Bank of India Chair in Rural Development, member Academic Council, member secretary, Board of Deans of the Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has published 40 research papers in national and international journals and published 25 authored and co-authored books. Sir has received Dr. Dhanajirao Gadgil Best Research Paper Award of the Shivaji University uh, Economics Association in 2016 and Radhakrishnan Gold Medal Award of New Delhi in 2016. He has worked as a member to prepare a human development report of Ratnagiri district funded by Yashoda and UNDP in 2016. Sir has also worked as a member to prepare reports of various departments of government of Maharashtra. With this brief introduction of both the guests, now I hand over the mic to Ms. Trisha. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Requesting the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Sujata Bhan, to come up and speak a few words.
A very good morning to everybody. Good morning. बोलते ना हाउस द जोश, जोश धीरे मत रखिए, जोश बुलंद होना चाहिए। जब भी कोई प्रोग्राम होता है उसमें एकदम चार्ज रहना चाहिए कि कुछ ना कुछ अपने को सीखने को मिलेगा। First and foremost, I really want to thank Shivaji University. I've come here for the first time, but whatever I've heard, I'm really feeling honored to be invited by this prestigious university to address you all on a theme which is very close to my heart. You just heard about my introduction that I have been working in the field of rehabilitation of persons with disabilities for the last 30 years. So I just want an opportunity to talk about it. So thank you very much, Pratibha ma'am in particular, who's been constantly chasing me and trying to organize कि किस प्रकार से मैं यहाँ आ जाऊँ। मेरे लिए थोड़ा मुश्किल था पर एक बार कमिटमेंट कर दी सो कर दी। So that's how I'm here, and I want to again the honorable dignitaries, Professor Kharade, Professor Deshmukh, and others. I'm very bad in remembering names, so all the dignitaries in the audience, students, scholars, everybody. A warm good morning to all of you. So NEP 2020 आपका थीम है और मैडम ने मुझे बोला इसके ऊपर क्या बोलेंगी आप, तो मैंने कहा उसमें the focus is on how do we develop an egalitarian society. Now, what is an egalitarian society where everybody is treated equal, equitable, and equal opportunities to one and all? ये जो NEP 2020 पॉलिसी आई है ये हमारे देश के लिए एक हिस्टोरिक पॉलिसी है और कई लोगों का मानना ये भी है कि इट्स वेरी यूटोपियन, यानी हवा में बातें हैं, ऐसा हो नहीं पाएगा। इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू इम्प्लीमेंट इट। एटलीस्ट किसी ने सोचा तो, कहीं तो शुरुआत वो सोच से होती है। जब हमारे देश को आजादी मिली थी तब भी किसी ने नहीं सोचा होगा कि 200 साल हम अंग्रेजों के अंदर थे और किस ऑपरेशन में रहते थे, उस ऑपरेशन से कभी बाहर निकल नहीं पाएंगे और कभी हम अपना झंडा लहरा पाएंगे, ऐसा कभी किसी ने नहीं सोचा होगा। और किसी ने तो सोचा और फिर वो जद्दोजहद चलती रही तो आज हम यहाँ पर स्वतंत्र खड़े हैं 75 years से। So somewhere the beginning has to be made. Yes, this policy is like a fairy tale policy, but if we believe in it and if we make those baby steps, जो रोड मैप वो हमें दिखा रहा है उसके ऊपर अगर हम थोड़ा थोड़ा धीरे धीरे चलने की कोशिश करेंगे तो डेफिनेटली जो इस पॉलिसी का उद्देश्य है वो हम जरूर we will be able to achieve that. So a few things, right from school education to higher education, what does this policy have? What does it talk about? थोड़ा सा मैं हर एक के ऊपर चर्चा करूँ। Next slide, please. जो gist इस policy का है, when we talk about inclusive education, what does it say? So I'll just read that. Education is fundamental to achieving full human potential. हर इंसान में कुछ न कुछ करने का पोटेंशियल होता है। अब एग्जैक्ट वर्ड्स मुझे हिंदी में नहीं आएंगे, बट आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू अंडरस्टैंड। मैडम ने मुझे बोला आप हिंदी में ज्यादा बोलिए, बट आई सी शी हर्सेल्फ डिडंट यूज हिंदी एट ऑल। बट एनीवे आई विल ट्राई एज मच एज आई कैन। सो हर एक इंसान में कुछ न कुछ होता है, उसको पूरा बाहर निकालना इज ह्यूमन पोटेंशियल एंड वी हैव टू वर्क टुवर्ड्स दैट। किसी को भी कम नहीं समझना, कुछ न कुछ हुनर, कुछ न कुछ स्किल सब में होता है। And developing an equitable and just society, जहां पर सब fair हो। कहने में सुनने में कितना अच्छा लगता है पर वास्तविकता उससे कितनी दूर है। But again वही बात कि we have to move in that direction. And promoting national development. कोई भी country को हम well developed तभी बोलते हैं जब उस country के marginalized section of the society are given fair opportunity, right? Any country, when we talk about developed nations, why are they developed? Because everybody has equal opportunities. जो वहाँ के marginalized को वो अपने mainstream में लाने के लिए सब policies उनकी हैं। हमारे देश को अभी हम क्यों developing बोलते हैं? क्योंकि हमारे marginalized section of the society is still marginalized, and these policies are being made to bring them in the mainstream. The Global Education Development Agenda, ये भी आप सबको मालूम होगा, SDG goals जो है जिसके हम signatory हैं। Once we become a signatory as a nation, then we are bound to follow what is written in that policy. अभी ये SDG goals में goal number 4 जो है वो किस पे फोकस करता है? Quality education, equitable education, leaving no one behind. So since we are bound by that, तो हमें भी अपनी policies उसी तरह से बनानी पड़ेगी ताकि हम जो हमने प्रतिज्ञा की है हम उसको पूरा fulfill कर सकें. So to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities by the year 2030. Next slide, please. Now, अभी हम 2 साल बहुत the uncertain times, difficult times, challenging times से गुजरे हैं. The whole world. उसके बाद क्या देखा गया कि जो हमारी एजुकेशन है बच्चों की, स्कूल की, हायर एजुकेशन has really taken a big beating. And even उससे पहले भी कई जगह पे ये जब researches हुई तो what was found that we are in a stage जिसको बोलते हैं learning crisis. यानी हमारे बहुत सारे बच्चे हैं, over 5 crore have not attained foundational literacy and numeracy. जो फाउंडेशन होती है उस लेवल पे भी हमारे बहुत बच्चे नहीं हैं. तो इसके लिए NEP 2020 में फाउंडेशनल लिटरेसी एंड न्यूमरेसी के ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा जोर दिया गया है. बच्चे आगे तभी बढ़ पाएंगे जब उनकी फाउंडेशन स्ट्रांग होगी. अगर फाउंडेशन ही वीक है तो आगे कैसे बढ़ेंगे? नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. दूसरा क्या देखा गया है कि जो हमारा ग्रॉस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो है वो कम होता जाता है जैसे क्लासेस बढ़ती जाती हैं. यानी ग्रेड 6 to 8 तक 90.7% एनरोलमेंट है, ग्रेड्स 9 to 10 में 79.3 एनरोलमेंट है. पर जैसे ही ग्रेड 11-12 में आते हैं तो हमारे नेशन वाइड जो एनरोलमेंट रेट है वो 51.3% कम हो जाता है. सो अगेन दिस रिफ्लेक्ट्स इट्स अ मेजर कंसर्न कि हमारे बच्चे आगे एजुकेशन, हायर एजुकेशन तक क्यों नहीं जाते. And this I'm not talking about children with disabilities. This is the general enrollment rate of all students. Next slide, please. अब इसका कारण अगर देखा जाए तो बहुत सारी इसके ऊपर भी रिसर्च हुई, डिस्कशंस हुई, ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग हुई. तो क्या निकल के आया है? Limited access to secondary schools and upper secondary schools. In school education, हमारे उतने स्कूल नहीं हैं जो कि हर बच्चे को एक्सेस हो सके. क्योंकि आप जैसे जानते हैं बहुत हमारी लाइक मेजर पॉपुलेशन स्टेज इन द रूरल इंडिया एंड इन रूरल इंडिया स्कूल्स आर नॉट एवरीवेयर. और हम जो एक अच्छी सिटी में रहते हैं, डेवलप सिटी में रहते हैं, हमको उन चीजों की या सच्चाई से हमको पता नहीं क्योंकि वी आर नॉट सीइंग दैट. सो वी वंडर कि क्यों अभी तो सब जगह गांव भी हमारे इतने बढ़िया दिखते हैं, हम टीवी में देखते हैं, मीडिया में देखते हैं, तो क्यों स्कूल नहीं है. बट व्हेन यू गो टू द इंटीरियर्स ऑफ एनी स्टेट, I have visited, for example, Maharashtra. Interior of Maharashtra में जाइए, कई जगह पे schools accessible नहीं. दूसरा कारण क्या होता है? हमारे यहाँ पे अभी भी जो stereotypes है. Next please. Please click. Yes. Socio-cultural and economic reason जो है हमारा अभी भी बहुत बड़ा कारण है जिसकी वजह से बच्चे आगे नहीं बढ़ पाते हैं. उसमें please keep on clicking. Yes. खासकर लड़कियों के लिए वो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन आज भी है. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट जेंडर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन इट इज रैम्पेंट एट ऑल लेवल्स. आज भी लड़कियों की जल्दी शादी करना, लड़कियों के घर के काम आने चाहिए, ये जो स्टीरियोटाइप्स हमारे, आप सोशियोलॉजी के स्टूडेंट्स हैं, आई डोंट रियली नीड टू टॉक मच अबाउट इट, यू आर रीडिंग अबाउट इट, दैट ऑल दीज स्टीरियोटाइप्स आर स्टिल एक्जिस्टेंट इन आवर सोशल सिस्टम एंड दैट बिकम्स वन डेटरेंट. As I said, perceived roles of gender, लड़कियों को घर संभालना है, and child labor and pressure on children because अभी भी हमारी बहुत सारी population below poverty line है. उनके लिए पहले 2 वक्त का खाना जुटाना वो ज्यादा जरूरी है बजाय के education. And this is all been evidence based. What I'm saying is all evidence based. So NEP 2020, keeping this in the background, has come up with this policy. So what are they highlighting? What are they emphasizing on is that the pedagogy of teaching has to change. The curriculum has to change. हर context अलग है. हमारे देश की क्या requirement है, हमारे लोगों की क्या requirement है, उसके हिसाब से आपको अपना curriculum change करना पड़ेगा. And उस प्रकार से teachers को भी पढ़ाने का तरीका change करना पड़ेगा. Learning should be holistic, integrated, enjoyable and engaging. This again I've taken from the policy. एक पूर्ण रूप से विकास बच्चों का होना चाहिए, इस प्रकार का हमारा करिकुलम होना चाहिए. Next slide please. Highlight when we talk about school education, I'm sure you all must be aware of it. It is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 format. Why have they done this grouping? कि हर स्टेज की रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से करिकुलम बनना चाहिए. When we are talking about change, we are revisiting our existing curriculum. तो उन्होंने ये स्टेजेस इसलिए बनाई है ताकि हम उस स्टेज में बच्चे की क्या जरूरतें होंगी उस प्रकार से आप उनको पढ़ाएं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अभी मातृभाषा पे बहुत स्ट्रेस दिया जा रहा है कि बच्चों को मातृभाषा में पढ़ाया जाए. Now, suppose I am a class teacher and I have students with Marathi background, somebody is Bengali background, somebody is with another language background. तो मुझे तो वो सब भाषाएं नहीं आती तो मैं कैसे पढ़ाऊंगी? ये questions हैं जो NEP के ऊपर सवाल उठाते हैं. Yes, I'm definitely agree with those questions कि ये problems आएंगी. मगर अगर majority बच्चे मराठी के हैं तो at least if I know, again I'm sorry, I myself don't know Marathi, so which is really, I'm sorry about that. But since I was in higher education, I managed to get away with it. But well, I'm not making excuses, but this is a fact. But if you are in school education, बच्चों की जो formative years हैं, अगर हम उनको उनकी भाषा में पढ़ाते हैं, तो definitely उनकी understanding of concepts will be better. But yes, having said that, we also have to train them in the global language. We cannot say कि सिर्फ आप उनको मातृभाषा में पढ़ाइए और उनको global language मत बताइए. उसके ऊपर कई लोग बोलते हैं जापान में देखिए वो तो अपनी भाषा में पढ़ाते हैं, तो जब उनको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं तो हमारे बच्चों को क्यों प्रॉब्लम होगी? उसका आंसर भी है ना, दीज आर ऑल डिबेटेबल इश्यूज. उसका आंसर ये भी आप देखिए कि हमारे स्टूडेंट्स, द इंडियन पॉपुलेशन अब्रॉड, हाउ वेल आर दे डूइंग? The reason is that they are strong in their English communication skills. That gives them an edge over the rest of the world in the global scenario. So वो भी जरूरी है, but being local and yet global जो मंत्रा है हमारी current सरकार का, which is a very very good mantra and we have to believe in that. Another focus, no, the same slide please. Another focus is on early childhood education. ये area, ये phase, ये period पहले किसी ने इसके ऊपर policies में इसके ऊपर focus नहीं किया था. Education policy में इसका कहीं जिक्र नहीं था. ये जो फॉर्मेटिव जो बेस है, ये वाले years जो है they are very very critical. So this is again one of the biggest highlights of this policy, that they are focusing on early childhood education. अब इसमें मेरे को जो बात बहुत अच्छी लगती है वो ये है कि हमारे बच्चे जो स्पेशल हो सकते हैं, they are picked up, they are identified at this time. When there is a focus attention in early childhood education and care, I am able to find a child who may be at risk, and if early intervention is not done, he may develop severe disability. So catch them young. अगर वो बचपन में ही आपने identify कर लिए और उनको सही से, क्योंकि अभी policy में provision है that you will be able to get the resources to provide them the right intervention, so that can prevent many disabilities. So this is again a highlight of this policy. Next point please. Alternative forms of schools are also being spoken about in this policy. जब हम inclusive education की बात करते हैं, हम क्या बोलते हैं कि जो भी बच्चे with whatever disabilities they may have, they should be brought in the mainstream and taught with everybody else. But there are some students who have high support needs. उनकी जरूरतें ज्यादा हैं, उनकी disability ज्यादा severe है. वो सबके साथ रेगुलर करिकुलम में इवन इफ वी मेक स्लाइट मॉडिफिकेशंस नहीं कर पाएंगे, उनके लिए ऑल्टरनेटिव करिकुलम होना चाहिए. तो उसका प्रोविजन भी, लाइक यू सी द पॉलिसी हैज लुक्ड एट एवरी एस्पेक्ट, इट्स फुल प्रूफ आई वुड से, यू नो. सो व्हाट आर दे सेइंग, उनके लिए ऑल्टरनेटिव स्कूल्स, जिसको हम स्पेशल स्कूल्स बोलते हैं, जिसके लिए हम स्पेशल टीचर्स ट्रेन करते हैं. कई बार स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स को ये बहुत डर लगता है कि everybody is talking about inclusive education. सब अगर स्कूल्स में, रेगुलर स्कूल्स में चले गए तो हमारी जॉब्स खतरे में हो जाएंगी. पॉलिसी ये नहीं बोलती है. पॉलिसी बोलती है कि जिन बच्चों को एक्स्ट्रा हेल्प की जरूरत है, जिनकी नीड्स ज्यादा है, उनके लिए स्पेशल स्कूल्स भी होने चाहिए, बट क्वालिटी एजुकेशन होना चाहिए. And this is for benchmark disabilities. Now, what are these benchmark disabilities? आपने mention भी किया हमारी एक again historical act pass हुआ, Rights of Persons with Disability Act in 2016. उससे पहले हमारा था Persons with Disability Act in 1985, जिसमें सिर्फ 7 disabilities were shortlisted or they were recognized. But in the present जो 2016 में एक्ट आया है उसमें 21 disabilities उन्होंने लिस्ट की हैं और ये भी बोला है कि ये फुल एंड फाइनल नहीं है, इट्स अ वेरी डायनेमिक थिंग। डिसेबिलिटीज के बारे में जितनी लोगों को ज्यादा जानकारी होती है उतनी awareness is there and the needs of those children are realized and they are entitled for those concessions and considerations from schools and universities. To give you one example, specific learning disability, dyslexia, नाम सुना है आपने? किसी ने सुना होगा नाम? This is the most commonly used term, dyslexia है या learning disability है, ये बहुत commonly use होता है। जो हमारी पहली पॉलिसी थी पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटी एक्ट, उसमें लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी का कोई मेंशन नहीं था। तो बहुत से हमारे जो स्टूडेंट्स थे जिनको लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी थी वो बहुत स्ट्रगल करते थे क्योंकि उनको कोई कंसेशन, कोई छूट, कोई रियायत नहीं मिलती थी। तो बहुत सारी जो एडवोकेसी ग्रुप्स जो उनके लिए लड़ते हैं, बोलते हैं, आगे आके बात करते हैं, अलग अलग फोरम्स पे बात करते हैं, उनकी उस जद्दोजहद के बाद अब वो स्पेसिफिक लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी के नाम से उसमें दर्ज हो गई है। So those students who have learning disability, and I can assure you, in any educational institute, in any class, you may find the chances of finding students who may be having some kind of learning disability will be there. So if proper assessment is done at the proper time and proper intervention is done at the proper time, they can achieve almost anything because उनको कोई cognitive deficit नहीं होता, कोई mental problem नहीं होती है। So इसी प्रकार से 21 disabilities, including those which are related to blood disorders, thalassemia and like that, बहुत सारी उसमें included है। So benchmark disability का अगर उनके पास सर्टिफिकेट है तो उनको आपको वो सुविधाएं देनी पड़ेंगी, ऐसा पॉलिसी में है। Recognition of concept of scholarship to SEDG. SEDG वो क्या बोलते हैं? Is socially economically disadvantaged group, which includes students with disability, not just students with disability. जो भी socially and economically disadvantaged है, उन सब groups के students को कुछ मदद करनी पड़ेगी ताकि वो बच्चे स्कूल में आ सके। Cash incentives to parents. So again, why am I putting it here is to highlight the fact that the policy is taking care of every aspect. उन्हें पता है बच्चे गरीब घर से हैं, इसके लिए माँ बाप बच्चों को नहीं भेजते। So if we want to prevent that, we have to give them some incentive. Next, please. No rigid separation between academic streams and extracurricular and vocational centers. Now, पहले क्या होता था कि जिसने इंजीनियरिंग करी, मेडिसिन करा, वही ठीक है। अगर आपके बच्चे ने कुछ और कर लिया तो मतलब बच्चा नालायक है। सो ऑल द पेरेंट्स पुट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रेशर ऑन देयर चिल्ड्रन कि आपको साइंस ही लेना है, इंजीनियरिंग करना है। आज भी है ये, ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत बदल गया है, आज भी है ये। बट अगर आप पूरा एजुकेशन सिस्टम ही बदल देंगे तो वो चेंज इन थॉट प्रोसेस भी धीरे धीरे आएगा। तो इसके लिए उन्होंने क्या बोला कि हमें एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज एंड वोकेशनल स्किल्स पे बहुत फोकस करना चाहिए। उसके लिए क्या करना है? नेक्स्ट प्लीज। वोकेशनल एजुकेशन क्लास 6 से ही आप शुरू करिए क्योंकि कई बच्चे जो हैं उनमें पढ़ाई शायद उतना आगे न कर सके, तो वो ग्रेजुएशन करके दे हैव नो फ्यूचर, दे डू पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन, दे हैव नो फ्यूचर। तो उनको अगर हम कुछ ऐसा स्किल दे सके ताकि वो अपने पांव पे खड़े हो सके और हमारे कंट्री के, हमारे नेशन के जीडीपी में हेल्प कर सके, ऐसा आपको उनके लिए पढ़ाई शुरू से करनी चाहिए। सो फ्रॉम क्लास 6 उनको ये वोकेशनल ट्रेड्स का एक्सपीरियंस देते हैं और कंपल्सरी टू एवरीबॉडी। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। During grade 6 and 8, students will choose a course. अपने आप उनकी जो उनकी, if you have to provide, like बुफे में होता है ना, कई सारी चीजें हैं, तो जो आपको पसंद है वो आप लीजिए। बहुत सारी चीजें आप उनको प्रस्तुत करिए और उसमें से जो उनको पसंद है उसमें उनको, उस वोकेशनल क्राफ्ट में उनको प्रॉपर ट्रेनिंग दीजिए। इससे भी हमारे स्पेशल बच्चों को बहुत मदद मिलेगी बिकॉज parents find it very hard to accept that their child has a disability. They are in a state of denial. नहीं ठीक हो जाएगा, थोड़े टाइम में अच्छा हो जाएगा, कोई नहीं, और आप इसको पढ़ाइए, आप इसको होमवर्क दीजिए, देयर फोकस इज ओनली कि वो 10th पास कर ले, भले वो बच्चा पढ़ पा रहा है या नहीं। अगर हमारा एजुकेशन सिस्टम ही चेंज हो जाएगा, वो देखेंगे सभी बच्चे वोकेशनल क्राफ्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उन्हें कोई आपत्ति नहीं होगी। वो स्टिग्मा जो एक डिसेबिलिटी के साथ अटैच है वो कम हो जाए, और अगर वो बच्चा किसी पर्टिकुलर क्राफ्ट में अच्छा करेगा तो उसी में उसकी ट्रेनिंग और होती जाएगी, ही विल बी economically independent at some point of time. Next, please. Then the policy talks about special education zones. What does it mean? The regions with significantly large population from, again, socially, economically disadvantaged groups should be declared as special education zones. वहां पर जहां पर ज्यादा आपको पॉपुलेशन लगती है कि यहाँ ज्यादा बच्चे इस प्रकार के हैं जो खाली विकलांग नहीं और भी कई वजह से मार्जिनलाइज है, उन एरियाज को स्पेशल एजुकेशन जोन डिक्लेयर किया जाएगा, तो सरकार की तरफ से उनको रिसोर्सेज देने की ज्यादा मदद मिलेगी। वंस लाइक हम लोग इन जनरल भी देखते हैं ना, हम अगर कोई एक फॉर एग्जांपल रिजर्व कैटेगरी है, when we have acknowledged that this group belongs to reserve category, they are entitled for so many concessions, promotions, admissions, so many things. So like that, एक category अगर हम उनको बना देंगे, तो they will also be entitled for many resources from the government. Next, please. A school complex with one secondary school together with all other schools offering lower grades in its neighborhood, including Anganwadis, in a radius to 5 to 10 kilometers. Now, again, what they are trying to say is कि आप इन बच्चों को socially, economically disadvantaged, not just people with disabilities, not just students with disabilities, हर marginalized को अलग न करके, segregate न करके उनको मेन स्ट्रीम में लाने के लिए उस तरह से आप अपने स्कूल्स बनाइए कि बड़ा स्कूल एक है, उसके पास वो स्पेशल स्कूल है या आंगनबाड़ी है या जहां पर उनको एक्स्ट्रा सपोर्ट नीड्स मिलते हैं वो उनके आसपास है। इवेंचुअली दे विल बी ट्रांजिशनिंग टू द मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल। नहीं तो क्या होता है, जो बच्चे स्पेशल स्कूल में है वो स्पेशल में ही रह जाते हैं, उनको मेन स्ट्रीम में कहीं एंट्री नहीं मिलती है। सो दिस फोकसेस ऑन दैट यू हैव टू टारगेट कि ये बच्चे को हम नेसेसरी स्किल्स दें, उसका फाउंडेशन स्ट्रॉन्ग करें और इवेंचुअली वो मेन स्ट्रीम में एब्सॉर्ब हो जाए। Then they also talk about aspirational zone. Excuse me, please focus here. Yeah. Specific geographical locations as aspirational districts. अभी मैं नॉर्थ ईस्ट में एक प्रोजेक्ट कर रही थी, तो वहां हमने देखा कि बहुत गरीबी है, बिल्कुल रिसोर्सेज नहीं है। I wish I could share some pictures. This is one of them, but there are some more alarming pictures. सरकार अभी बहुत नॉर्थ ईस्ट में पैसे लगा रही है फॉर डेवलपमेंट, दैट इज देयर फोकस एरिया नाउ। सो दैट इज एन एस्पिरेशनल जोन। अगर आपने एक एरिया को एस्पिरेशनल जोन डिक्लेयर कर दिया, द गवर्नमेंट विल बी बाउंड टू स्पेंड मोर मनी इन दैट एरिया। सो वी आइडेंटिफाई एरियाज वेयर द सिचुएशन इज वेरी वेरी पुअर, फैसिलिटीज नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, तो वो एरियाज आइडेंटिफाई करके उनको एस्पिरेशनल जोन नाम दिया जाए और सरकार की तरफ से उन्हें मदद दी जाए। यहाँ यहाँ पर अगर आप ये पिक्चर देखेंगे, नॉर्थ ईस्ट की एक पिक्चर है। हमारे यहाँ पे एक स्कीम है जिसको एडिट स्कीम बोलते हैं, असिस्टिव डिवाइसेस गेट आर गिवन टू पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज। मगर वो स्कीम है, कैसे दिया जाता है, अगर आप इस पिक्चर में देखेंगे, ये बच्चा क्या साइज का है और जो उसकी व्हील चेयर है वो क्या साइज की है। सो इवन इफ द पॉलिसी इज देयर, द रिसोर्सेज डोंट रीच the right people and the right resources don't reach the right people. So when you go to these interiors, you just see कि मतलब हम बातें तो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी करते हैं, पॉलिसीज भी बहुत बड़ी बड़ी है, बहुत अच्छा लिखा हुआ है, मगर जो रियलिटी है वो बहुत दूर है उससे। So these are things which are like a hard-hitting facts which we have to acknowledge, accept and move इनको कैसे दूर किया जाए। Next slide please. अभी हमारे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर पास किया है कि हर स्कूल में 2 स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स होने चाहिए टू असिस्ट दीज स्टूडेंट्स हु नीड एक्स्ट्रा हेल्प, but without secluding them, include them in mainstream school and provide them with that special help. So need for additional special educators for children with disabilities and subject teaching knowledge. जो special educators है उनको स्कूल सब्जेक्ट्स भी पढ़ाने आने चाहिए, और जो स्कूल टीचर्स हैं, जो रेगुलर स्कूल टीचर्स हैं, उन्हें डाइवर्सिटी के बारे में भी पता होना चाहिए। Now, I don't know how many of you are aware, NCTE and RCI, Rehabilitation Council of India, prepares the curriculum for special education and NCTE prepares the curriculum for general education. So, आपके स्कूल टीचर जो रेगुलर स्कूल में होते हैं और जो स्पेशल स्कूल में होते हैं स्पेशल एजुकेटर। Now, till these two have a marriage, till these two combine, till these two come on some common understanding, तो ये अपने अपने साइलों में ही रहेंगे कि मैं क्लास टीचर हूँ रेगुलर बच्चों का, मेरे क्लास में क्यों आपने ये स्पेशल बच्चे को बिठाया है। हमारी अभी मैंने अभी बोला था नॉर्थ ईस्ट में प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा था सीबीएम का, मुंह पर सामने से वो बोलते हैं कि हमें नहीं कोई ट्रेनिंग चाहिए, हमको पहले कम काम है तो अब आप आके हमें यहाँ पे ट्रेनिंग कर रहे हो कि क्लास में डाइवर्सिटी को कैसे हैंडल करना है, हमें नहीं चाहिए। प्रिंसिपल्स क्या, टीचर्स क्या, दैट इज द एटीट्यूडनल बैरियर, बिकॉज समवेयर वी थिंक कि ये मेरा काम नहीं है, ये स्पेशल एजुकेशन का काम है, उनको स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स को करने देना चाहिए। सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन, इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि ये जो दो अलग स्ट्रीम्स हैं ये कहीं पे मर्ज हो, और एक रेगुलर टीचर को भी ये समझ में आए कि मेरी क्लास में सारे ही फर्स्ट तो नहीं आ सकते ना, नॉर्मल प्रोबेबिलिटी कर्व होता है, कुछ बच्चे एवरेज है, थोड़े से बहुत होशियार है, थोड़े से कम होशियार भी होंगे, पर अगर आप अच्छी टीचर है तो आपको सभी को साथ लेके चलना है। तो उसके लिए अगर हमने स्पेशल बच्चों को भी उसमें लाया है तो वो ट्रेनिंग तो आपको लेनी ही पड़ेगी। तो सरकार बहुत सारा काम कर रही है ऑन कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग ऑफ रेगुलर टीचर्स फॉर how to manage these diversities in the classroom. So subject teaching, so point what it is from the policy that a special educator को भी आना चाहिए कि मुझे मैथ्स कैसे पढ़ाना है, इंग्लिश कैसे पढ़ाना है, अगर 50 बच्चे क्लास में बैठे हैं, क्योंकि उनकी जो ट्रेनिंग है वो सिर्फ 1 2 3 4 5 बच्चे बस में, तो 60 बच्चों को हैंडल कैसे करेंगे, तो उनको वो ट्रेनिंग भी आनी चाहिए। सिमिलरली जनरल टीचर्स को भी ट्रेनिंग होनी चाहिए कि अगर मेरी क्लास में कोई लो विजन बच्चा है, ब्लाइंड बच्चा है, या ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है, या कोई इमोशनल ट्रोमा से गुजर रहा है, तो वैसे सिचुएशन में मुझे क्या करना चाहिए। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। Now, what is the socially economically disadvantaged group listed in the policy? So they say it is based on socio-cultural identities, like आप रिजर्व कैटेगरी के हैं, आप मुस्लिम बैकग्राउंड से हैं, बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन है, जोग्राफिकल आइडेंटिटीज जैसे आप नॉर्थ ईस्ट से हैं जहां पर बहुत सारी एडवर्स कंडीशंस में स्कूल्स होते हैं, तो आप उस बैकग्राउंड से आ रहे हैं, या आप स्कूल महाराष्ट्र में है, आप महाराष्ट्र में जा रहे हैं मगर आप आए कहीं और से, आपकी ज्योग्राफिकल लोकेशन एकदम डिफरेंट थी, तो आप उसमें कैसे फिट बैठ रहे हैं, या आपकी कोई डिसेबिलिटीज है, या फिर सोशियो इकोनॉमिक कंडीशंस आपकी बहुत पुअर है। तो ये सारे ग्रुप ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स लाइक चिल्ड्रन ऑफ माइग्रेंट्स, चिल्ड्रन फ्रॉम लो इनकम फैमिली ग्रुप्स, children in vulnerable situations going through any kind of emotional trauma, drug trafficking, body trafficking, और orphans, मतलब बहुत लंबी कैटेगरी है जिनको आप सबको सोशली एंड इकोनॉमिकली डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप में मानते हैं, जिनको आप एक अलग नजरिए से देखते हैं। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। ना ये यहाँ तक मैंने स्कूल की बात की, अभी अगर हम हायर एजुकेशन में आए, सारे बच्चे हमारे स्कूल तक 10th तक पहुंचते ही नहीं, जैसे मैंने बोला कि पहले ही ड्रॉप आउट हो जाते हैं, तो हायर एजुकेशन में तो और भी कम हो जाते हैं। So various targeted measures have to be taken for the next 5 years to ensure that these socially and economically disadvantaged groups, including those with disabilities, can access and excel in higher education. एक जनरल हमारी जो मिथ है, जो एक भावना है, या जो एक गलत हमको फहमी है कि अगर कोई डिसेबल है तो मतलब वो कॉग्निटिवली भी डिसेबल्ड ही है, बट हर कोई डिसेबिलिटी में कॉग्निटिवली डिसेबल नहीं होता, और अगर कोई बच्चा है वो पुअर इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा है तो वो कुछ सीख नहीं सकता या ज्यादा आगे नहीं जा सकता, ये भी हमारी मिसकंसेप्शन है। सो इन चीजों को एड्रेस करने के लिए हमें क्या करना चाहिए। नेक्स्ट, हाउ डू यू डिफाइन इंक्लूजन। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। इनएक्सेसिबल एनवायरनमेंट, जो आपके स्कूल्स हैं, हायर एजुकेशन है, I was really happy जब मैं यहाँ पे आई, मैंने देखा आपका पूरा accessible environment है। It's a big thing. I have been on NAC inspections, sir. I want to share this with you. And in NAC we have this, that how accessible is the university or the education institute. मेरे साथ कई बार ऐसा हुआ कि उस चीज को ओवरलुक कर देते हैं, जाने दो, मतलब you know when you have to give recommendation, it is not highlighted. बिकॉज हम उस चीज को इतना महत्व नहीं, अभी कितने बच्चे आएंगे व्हील चेयर पे, कितने ब्लाइंड आएंगे, जाने दीजिए मैडम, इट्स ओके, इसको हाईलाइट मत करिए। क्योंकि आई ऑन द फील्ड, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि नहीं, इसको हाईलाइट करिए ताकि हर यूनिवर्सिटी, सो व्हेन आई केम हियर इट वाज रियली अ प्लेजर टू सी कि हर जगह एक्सेसिबिलिटी है. बट आई आल्सो हैड अ प्रॉब्लम, आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर दैट. इन द मॉर्निंग I was given a room in the guest house, and which had, now I'm not a person with disabilities. We all consider हम तो बिल्कुल perfect है, but none of us is perfect. All of us have some problem or the other. Now this guest room जो मुझे मिला वहाँ पर Indian toilet था, and I just cannot squat. So मेरे साथ एक स्टूडेंट थी, उनको मैंने बोला कि नहीं, मुझे तो कमरा चेंज करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि मैं तो ये यूज ही नहीं कर सकती. So I became disabled. For that situation, I was disabled. So these are small things which we also need to consider. It is not just for people who are on crutches or wheelchair. It is for all of us. Also look at the older population. I am getting old and I cannot, because of whatever reason, I cannot squat down. So जब हम इन चीजों को एड्रेस करते हैं, वो सिर्फ एक डिसेबल को ही ध्यान में रखते हुए हमें नहीं करना है. इन जनरल हर एक की नीड के हिसाब से हमें अपनी इंस्टीट्यूट को एक्सेसिबल बनाना है. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. नाउ you see a child on a wheelchair and the child is in the classroom. Now, is it accessible? कैसा लग रहा है आपको इस पिक्चर को देख के? एक्सेसिबल नहीं है. क्यों नहीं है? फिजिकली एक्सेसिबल है, मगर द चाइल्ड इज स्टिल ऑन द साइड. बच्चे भी उसको ऐसी नजर से देख रहे हैं जैसे कोई बंदर बैठा हुआ है वहां पे. वो भी ऐसे ही बेचारा जैसा बच्ची बैठी हुई है कि like she's not engaged in what everybody is with a notebook, and this child is not having anything in her hand. This is the reality. कि अगर हम बच्चों को ले भी आते हैं, पर उनके साथ कुछ क्वालिटी, कुछ क्वांटिटेटिव, कुछ फीजिबल, कुछ मेजरेबल काम ही नहीं होता, तो फिर वो थोड़ी देर में छोड़ के चले जाते हैं कि कुछ तो उनसे फायदा तो हो नहीं रहा, कुछ सीख तो रहे नहीं. तो एजुकेशन आगे पेरेंट्स क्यों इनको कंटिन्यू करें? नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. नाउ physical accessibility is the first thing which I see in your university, so this is very good. Now, if you look at the first picture, many a times we put ramps. ठीक है, फिजिकल एक्सेसिबिलिटी मतलब रैंप होना चाहिए, रेलिंग होना चाहिए, बाथरूम डिसेबल फ्रेंडली होने चाहिए, बट वो ध्यान नहीं देते हैं कि वो जो रैंप है वो आपको ठीक लग रही है क्या? जो ऊपर रैंप है नहीं है ठीक, उससे तो नीचे ही गिर जाएगा बच्चा. तो वो इंक्लाइन गाइडलाइंस हैं. देयर आर गाइडलाइंस फॉर एक्सेसिबिलिटी. अगर आपको अपने एनवायरनमेंट में करना है तो क्या गाइडलाइंस है, उनको फॉलो करके हमें अपना एनवायरनमेंट एक्सेसिबल बनाना है. सो जैसे यहाँ पे या आपके यहाँ पे है जैसे टेक्टाइल फ्लोरिंग वगैरह मैंने देखा, सो विच इज वेरी वेरी गुड. बट हाउ मेनी इंस्टीट्यूट्स एक्चुअली हैव एक्सेसिबल एनवायरनमेंट इज द क्वेश्चन. So this is about physical accessibility. The first thing that we have to address is physical accessibility. Next slide, please. Then we talk about the curricular accessibility. जो मैं पढ़ा रही हूँ मेरी क्लास में, क्या सब बच्चों को वो समझ में आ रहा है? कोई ब्लाइंड है, कोई हियरिंग इम्पेयर्ड है, किसी को इंटेलेक्चुअल डेफिसिट है, या जो भी उसकी प्रॉब्लम है. What effort am I making in making the content comprehensible to each and every student in my class in higher education? स्कूल में तो फिर भी चलो कोई गलती से चार्ट पार्ट बना ले, नहीं तो जब तक बीएड कर रहे होते हैं तब तक चार्ट्स और मॉडल्स बनाते हैं. जब भी स्कूल में आ गए तो कोई नहीं बनाता है, इन गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स पर्टिकुलरली, क्योंकि उनको कोई हिला नहीं सकता. प्राइवेट स्कूल में फिर भी मैनेजमेंट डंडा लेके पीछे पड़ी रहती है, और हायर एजुकेशन में तो सवाल ही नहीं है. So how am I ensuring that what I am teaching is comprehensible? वो सब बच्चे उसको समझ रहे हैं. Am I making use of whatever it may be, charts, models, giving them handouts, using advanced organizers? Many things are there when we talk about pedagogy. तो वो हम क्या use कर रहे हैं कि नहीं use कर रहे हैं? In this picture, you can see that there are higher secondary students, and models are being used to explain to the child. Here you have a child who has visual impairment. यहाँ पर एक लो विजुअल स्टूडेंट है. तो किस तरह से उनको हम क्या क्या टेक्निक्स यूज कर सकते हैं? दैट इज व्हाट इज टॉट इन स्पेशल एजुकेशन, एंड दैट इज व्हाट इज बीइंग फोकस्ड ऑन व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग ऑफ टीचर्स इन हायर एजुकेशन एज वेल टू एड्रेस दीज डाइवर्सिटीज इन क्लास. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. Now, in physically class में बच्चे को लाना does not end there. We have to create a specific environment, climate of respect, and a culture of belonging to be created in the institutes where opportunities are accessible to everybody. Nobody bullies anybody, nobody makes fun of anybody. इस तरह का एक अच्छा learning environment create करना. Next. Now, practically, how do we do it? So there is a three-pronged approach that we propagate. We say develop inclusive policies of your organization, have inclusive practices in your organization, and create that inclusive culture in your organization. So if the management, for example, अभी यूनिवर्सिटी की बात कर रहे हैं, वाइस चांसलर, all your deans, all your board of studies के members, everybody focuses on these things कि हमको policy inclusive बनानी है, इंक्लूसिव प्रैक्टिसेस करने हैं, इंक्लूसिव कल्चर क्रिएट करना है। एक एग्जांपल मैं यहाँ पे दूंगी, हमारे यहाँ पे डिस्टेंस लर्निंग का कोर्स चलता है, तो डिस्टेंस लर्निंग में हमने ट्रांसजेंडर्स को एडमिशन देना शुरू किया है। तो आप बोलेंगे हाँ क्या बड़ी बात है, वो आएगा तो नहीं ना आपके पास, अपने डिस्टेंस में कर रहा है, बट कुछ तो बिगनिंग हुई, कभी तो कॉन्टैक्ट प्रोग्राम में आएगा। फिर हमारे यहाँ पे जैसे कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस है या कुछ ऐसे सेमिनार्स वगैरह होते हैं, वी इनवाइट ट्रांसजेंडर्स, टॉपिक वैसा होता है तो उन्हें हम बुलाते हैं, दे कम एंड दे एड्रेस द ऑडियंस। These are small steps, these are small beginnings that we are changing our mindset कि हमें ट्रांसजेंडर को भी मेन स्ट्रीम में लाना है, and they are also part of your SEDG group. Next please. इसको फर्दर फेजेस में अगर हम करें, फेज 1 में क्रिएटिंग एक्सेसिबल फिजिकल स्ट्रक्चर जो मैंने कहा, सबसे पहले हमें उस पर फोकस करना है। फेज 2 में क्रिएटिंग एक्सेसिबल करिकुलम, फेज 3 में स्ट्रेंथनिंग इंक्लूसिव प्रैक्टिसेस, जो भी आप करते हैं उसको स्ट्रेंथन करना है, मतलब आज मैंने किया और छोड़ दिया उसका भी मैं एग्जांपल देती हूँ। फेज 4 में स्ट्रेंथनिंग कम्युनिटी आउटरीच टू आइडेंटिफाई पीपल, ब्रिंग देम इनटू द मेन स्ट्रीम। कई लोगों को तो पता ही नहीं होता, people who are marginalized don't even know क्या हमारे हक है, क्या हम किस चीज के लिए मांग कर सकते हैं, उन्हें पता ही नहीं है। So we have to become their advocates and reach out to them, and then sustainability of that. Now I'll give you one example here. एक बहुत अच्छा इंस्टीट्यूट है, कॉलेज है, जेवियर्स कॉलेज ऑफ एजुकेशन एंड डिग्री कॉलेज फॉर ह्यूमैनिटीज and science in Mumbai. It's one of the most prestigious colleges there. वहाँ एडमिशन के लिए लोग मारो मार फिरते हैं। उनका एक सेंटर है XRCB where they are focusing on visual impairment and now other disabilities also। उनके लिए काफी उनके पास इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है। तो हायर एजुकेशन में मान लो मेरा कोई स्टूडेंट है, उसको मैं वो सारी सहूलियतें नहीं दे सकती, तो they can go to that XRCB center in the college and attend, learn about various technologies and things like that. Now this institute conducts a disability awareness program throughout the country. उसको वो बोलते हैं अंतरचक्षु, कि आपको देखिए क्या होता है कि हम खुद एबल बॉडी, मेरे परिवार में सब सही, आजू बाजू भी सब सही, तो मेरे को लगता है कौन डिसेबल, क्या लेना देना मेरा इससे। सो वी आर वेरी इनसेंसिटिव टुवर्ड्स देम। जैसे कोई गरीब पैसा मांगने आता है, हम अपनी खिड़की का शीशा खिड़की का ऊपर कर देते हैं, इधर को मुंह कर लेते हैं, मुंह फेर लेते हैं। वी डोंट even bother to see, चाहे वो transgender है, चाहे poor beggar है, या जो भी है, because they're not part of our life. So it is the same attitude towards people with disabilities. So now this institute has taken it upon themselves to create awareness about, unless you feel that empathy होता है कि मुझे actually पता लगना चाहिए कि blind होना मतलब क्या, hearing impaired होना मतलब क्या, तो बहुत सारी simulated activities करते हैं, IIT, IIM, सब बड़े बड़े institutes में जाते हैं। तो हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी में भी एक बार हुआ, बहुत अच्छा, बड़ा पॉपुलर हुआ ये वही। और उस बात को भी मुझे लगता है कम से कम 7-8 साल हो गए, फिर तो कोरोना हो गया, तो और भी कुछ नहीं। अभी जब भी हम बात करते हैं कि हमें दोबारा करना है, किया ना एक बार, अभी बार क्यों? उस समय कौन से स्टूडेंट्स थे आपके, क्या वो स्टूडेंट्स अभी है? मतलब उसका पर्पस क्या था? टू क्रिएट दैट अवेयरनेस एंड एम्पैथी फॉर पीपल विद डिफरेंट डिसेबिलिटी, बिकॉज द एटीट्यूडनल बैरियर इज देयर। इतने स्टूडेंट्स हमारे यहाँ डिसेबिलिटी, क्यों इसके ऊपर पैसा खर्च? एक्चुअली वो करते भी फ्री है, इट्स नॉट इवन चार्ज, इट्स फ्री, बट इन जनरल वो कि डिसेबिलिटी और द मार्जिनलाइज्ड सेक्शन ऑफ द कम्युनिटी इज नॉट ऑन माय एजेंडा, तो हम उसको सस्टेन नहीं करते हैं। The point I'm trying to make is that anything that you do has to be sustainable. उसको बार बार आपको करते रहना पड़ेगा, तब उसका कुछ फायदा है, नहीं तो आपने एक बार किया बाद में नहीं किया, उसका कोई फायदा नहीं। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। Okay, so phase 1 with creating accessible physical infrastructure is implementation of NEP 2020 in terms of inclusion of socially and economically disadvantaged groups. That is the policy. So we have to definitely create accessible environment everywhere. Conduct access audit. सर ने मुझसे पूछा आपके यहाँ पे access audit हुआ है क्या? Yes, कुछ साल पहले हुआ था, और उन्होंने बहुत सारे हमको दिए कि ये ठीक नहीं, ये ठीक नहीं, ये बदलिए, तो उसका एक्सपेंडिचर बहुत ज्यादा था। तो naturally अब धीरे धीरे कर रहे हैं. I would say at least the beginning has been made, but yes, वो truly कब हमारा accessible जैसा आपका है कब होगा उसमें पता नहीं कितने साल लगेंगे. So I was really happy कि देखो एक जगह मिला कि जो पूरा perfectly near perfect accessible है. So create accessible infrastructure and create awareness about building inclusive culture. हम ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? उसके लिए जो इस प्रकार के जो सेमिनार्स, वर्कशॉप्स आप बार बार लोगों को बताएंगे तो उन्हें थोड़ा समझ में आएगा कि ये क्यों करना जरूरी है. नहीं तो ठीक है ना, चल रहा है ना, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. नेक्स्ट. So policy make in creating phase 2, what do we emphasize on? Begin from admissions. Admissions में आप कोई ऐसा भेदभाव नहीं करेंगे for people coming from socially disadvantaged background. Transfer of credits through CBS system अभी हमारी NEP में ये है. तो एक जो marginalized है उसको और ज्यादा flexibility देना चाहिए ताकि वो अपने credits अपनी जरूरतों के हिसाब से वो उसको accumulate कर सके. And examination and evaluation में भी उनको concessions, alternative methods यूज करने चाहिए ताकि वो जो लिख नहीं सकता वो बोल सकता है, कंप्यूटर यूज कर सकता है, कैलकुलेटर यूज कर सकता है. इस तरह की उनको सुविधाएं देनी चाहिए. इंक्लूसिव टीचिंग पेडागोजी, फॉर एग्जांपल राइट नाउ द बज़वर्ड इज यूनिवर्सल डिजाइन फॉर लर्निंग. आप सोशियोलॉजी बैकग्राउंड के हैं तो शायद आपने ये वर्ड नहीं सुना होगा, बट व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट एजुकेशन, एजुकेशन इन जनरल, नॉट स्पेशल एजुकेशन, एजुकेशन इन जनरल, तो पेडागोजी जो बोली जाती है आज के दौर में वो है यूनिवर्सल डिजाइन फॉर लर्निंग. दैट मीन्स every student in the class has to have access to जो भी आप पढ़ाते हैं. तो चाहे आप सोशियोलॉजी के टीचर है या मैथ्स के टीचर है या किसी के भी टीचर है, everybody should know about this pedagogy, universal design for learning. And differentiated instruction, again another pedagogy, how do you differentiate instruction according to the level of students in your class. And technology integration, definitely that is again the buzzword today. Creating awareness about accessible curriculum, why it is necessary and how we can do it. And requirement उसके लिए हमें क्या करना होगा, यही फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम्स बहुत सारे करने होंगे, लेक्चर सीरीज करना होगा. और जो भी आप छोटे प्रोग्राम्स बनाते हैं वो अपनी BOS और एकेडमिक काउंसिल से अवेयरनेस के लिए उनको पास कराते जाइए. जैसे अभी हमने एक 4 क्रेडिट का कोर्स जस्ट इंट्रोड्यूस किया बिकॉज ऑफ द डिमांड ऑफ NEP 2020, वैल्यू एडेड कोर्सेज का बोलते हैं. तो उसमें है diversity and inclusive education, which is a 4 credit course which any student from any background, चाहे वो हिस्ट्री का है या सोशियोलॉजी का है या कोई भी है जिसको इंटरेस्ट है, वो ये 4 क्रेडिट्स का कोर्स करके अपने 4 क्रेडिट्स जोड़ सकता है in the academic bank of credits that NEP is talking about. So this is how our university is implementing NEP. So we are all expected to develop these short programs, 2 credit का, 4 credit का, which is addressing the major concerns highlighted in NEP 20. आगे बढ़िए. And in phase 3, strengthening all these policies which we have set, perhaps made, उनको strengthen करना, उनको implement करना. That is what the focus should be. Teaching, learning, evaluation, हर एक चीज में मतलब we have to keep taking the feedback, क्या इसमें दिक्कत आ रही है क्या नहीं, उसको और strengthen करना, full proof करना. Collecting feedback through stakeholders, teachers, administrative staff as well as parents. Monitoring implementation of inclusive policies, improvisation based on feedback from the stakeholders, providing mental health. Mental health again is a big issue. Everybody is talking about mental health because again, lot of stresses जिसकी हम उस दौर से गुजर रहे हैं जिसमें अलग-अलग प्रकार के स्ट्रेस हमारे यूथ को होते हैं. So they also need that kind of support. We must provide them that. Encouraging collaborative learning methodologies, जैसे again teaching pedagogy का है ये, cooperative learning, peer tutoring. So how do you follow different teaching methodologies when you have diversity in your class? उस तरह की practices होते रहना चाहिए. Inclusive annual fest, मतलब कोई भी आप activity करते हैं उसमें मुझे यहाँ पे बहुत खुशी हो रही है. There are some participants who are having some disability, so they are also part of that. You do not negate their existence. They are there where they should be. If there is a non-disabled person, so a person with a disability also has every right to be there. So which is very good. And develop monitoring mechanism by setting up various committees. So कुछ भी आप करते हैं उसको monitoring बहुत जरूरी है. उसके लिए आप committee set करिए और उसको साथ में देखते जाइए. Phase 4 also focuses on adopting adopting marginalized communities, communities को identify करना और उन्हें adoption, जिसको हम बोलते हैं outreach में schools adopt किए जाते हैं, कुछ communities adopt की जाती हैं, which also should be part of our community outreach programs. So identifying school and college dropouts, creating awareness and counseling for higher education कि वो वापस आए school के बाद education छोड़ न दे, providing support services for admissions and teaching learning in higher education, developing mentorship programs. So basically, there are so many practices. I don't want to take so much of time. Ongoing sensitization activities, what I said earlier, that has to be ongoing. And developing linkages. करेंगे कैसे जब तक हमें पता नहीं होगा, so we have to identify the leaders in the community, connect with them, and then reach out to them. Go there, like it should be part of my job. Outreach extension work is part of a job of all the university teachers, research, teaching and extension work. So I should not, मतलब मुझे शर्म नहीं आनी चाहिए, मुझे जाना चाहिए बाहर जाकर. हम लोग बहुत ऐसे हमारे रूरल प्लेसमेंट प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं, इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं, पार्ट ऑफ आवर करिकुलम. सो वी हैव टू इंश्योर अगेन, relook at your curriculum. Is it taking care of all of this? Where your staff, your students go out there in the field where there is a need and give them what they require. Next, please. So first step was identify students belonging to this SED groups, provide additional support in terms of financial help, psychological help, and academic help. Scholarship schemes, बहुत सारी सरकार की हैं. We also look for private donors and give them the financial help so that they continue with their education. A helpline for those who seek any kind of help due to emotional problems or any mental health issues, particularly pandemic के time में ये बहुत मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज एकदम हाईलाइट हो गए. तो आपके यहाँ पे कोई ऐसी सर्विस आप रखें कि जो इस प्रकार के बच्चों की, मतलब बच्चों को इस प्रकार की कोई अगर प्रॉब्लम हो तो दे कैन जस्ट पिक अप द फोन और मीट समबडी. सो हैव अ डेस्क वेयर यू हैव समबडी ओनली एड्रेसिंग टू द मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज. Offering training to faculty members on universal design of learning and other inclusive pedagogies, provide reading material in local language, provide opportunities to showcase talent of students belonging to these groups, reward their small achievements. Let them come on the forefront. Let them be an example for others. Highlight, जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, क्रिकेट को हम इतना हाईलाइट करते हैं, बाकी स्पोर्ट्स को क्यों हाईलाइट नहीं करते, हमेशा क्रिकेटर्स ही क्यों फोरफ्रंट में रहते हैं. इसी प्रकार से अगर ये बच्चे कोई भी अचीवमेंट करते हैं तो उसको अगर हम देखेंगे, पहले चश्मा लगाना वर्स, जैसे क्या बोलते थे, चश्मिश. किसी ने चश्मा पहना है, लड़की ने खासकर, तो वो लड़की को शादी नहीं मिलेगी या दिक्कत होगी. न्यूज रीडर्स कभी चश्मा नहीं पहनते थे, वो रिजेक्ट हो जाते थे. एयर होस्टेस कभी चश्मे वाली नहीं हो सकती. बट नाउ यू सी द चेंज, राइट? यू सी पीपल विद वेयरिंग ग्लासेस हर जगह पे, चाहे वो मीडिया है, हर जगह आपको दिखते हैं. बट पीपल विद हेयरिंग एड, there is still a taboo to that. Hearing aid नहीं, चश्मा चलेगा तो hearing aid लगाते हैं तो नहीं. That is also a support just like your glasses. So धीरे धीरे हमें इन सब चीजों की जो myths हैं, जो stereotypes हैं, वो हमें खत्म करने हैं, right? So, next please. Very quickly, role of teacher is very important. Next slide please. Right from Gurukul to where we are many a times we say कि आजकल टीचर्स को रिस्पेक्ट ही नहीं मिलती है जो पहले मिला करती थी. कहीं ना कहीं हम खुद भी उसके लिए जिम्मेदार हैं. तो वो हमें एनईपी में पूरा चैप्टर टीचर रोल के ऊपर है कि टीचर्स को क्या करना है, हमारी क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, हमारी क्या अकाउंटेबिलिटी है, उसके लिए हमें सतर्क रहना चाहिए. एंड ये मेरा 30 years का एक्सपीरियंस है कि many teachers, I won't say all, many teachers just take their jobs for granted. हमें कोई हिला नहीं सकता, चाहे मैं स्कूल परमानेंट जॉब है या यूनिवर्सिटी में परमानेंट जॉब है. वी डोंट टेक आवर जॉब सीरियसली. सो दैट इज समथिंग वी रियली नीड टू एड्रेस एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट हैज बीन हाइलाइटेड इन द पॉलिसी. नॉट दैट we have anything against the teacher, it's a general thing. Everybody has to become more responsible. So yes, technology, we all have to become tech savvy. अभी तो pandemic में काफी हमें सिखा दिया है, but there are still some teachers who are averse to technology. So that hesitance we have to break. And अभी बिना technology के कोई गुजारा नहीं है. So we have to include technology in all its forms in our teaching and evaluation and everything. E means equity, so we have to be fair to everybody and we have to give them the opportunities according to their level of performance. मैं यहाँ पे खड़ी होकर पढ़ा रही हूँ और मेरी इस समय ये गलती है कि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि यहाँ पे visually impaired कुछ लोग हैं. I should have described my slides one by one, which I did not. So that is something which does not come naturally to us. Suddenly I noticed that maybe, I see a person who's totally, perhaps visually impaired. So I should have said कि मैं slide में दिखा रही हूँ, teacher है TEACHERS, तो हर लेटर से मैंने एक मतलब क्या एनईपी में हाईलाइट किया है तो वो मैंने इसमें दिखाया है। ई के बाद ए मतलब एक टीचर का कैसा एटीट्यूड होना चाहिए और अकाउंटेबल होना चाहिए। सी से मतलब हर टीचर को केयरिंग होना चाहिए एंड हर टीचर को अलग लोगों के साथ कोलैबोरेट करना चाहिए। इसमें ये नहीं सोचना चाहिए आई नो इट ऑल, नन ऑफ अस नो एवरीथिंग, सो देयर इज नो हार्म इन कोलैबोरेटिंग विद अनदर कलीग। H का मतलब holistic. I have to focus on holistic education of my children, every aspect in higher education as well. And E मतलब empowered. I'll feel empowered if I know enough about my subject. So I have to keep updating my knowledge. मैंने B.Ed कर लिया, M.Ed कर लिया, PhD कर लिया, अभी मुझे और पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. Is a myth. We have to constantly upgrade our knowledge. That will make us empowered. I have to be R से reflective. मतलब मैंने आज ये session लिया, क्या I'm happy with this session. Did I connect with people? Did they follow something? Or everybody was getting bored? I need to reflect on that. How can I improve my class? How can I improve my lecture taking skills, so on and so forth. So reflection बहुत जरूरी है. And we have to create a synergy. S for synergy मतलब classroom का ऐसा माहौल हमें बनाना है जहाँ पर हर student is eager to attend your lecture and not dunk your lecture. That is it. So yeah, thank you. Finally, I want to end with this quote that we are for difference. We respect difference for valuing difference until difference no longer makes any difference. Because we are practically, all of us are different, and yet we are same. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening to me for quite some time. And if you have any questions, please.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the very informative presentation. I'm sure everyone present here must have definitely picked up something from this presentation. Moving forward, now I request Professor Dr. M.S. Deshmukh to kindly come forward and say a few words.
Namaskar. I think we are almost encroaching in the next technical session. I will not take much more time because whatever is to be conveyed, the resource person has been already communicated to you. But on the occasion of the National Education Policy 20 and persons with disability in higher education, this particular conference which was organized by Department of Sociology, UGC-Scheme for persons with disabilities, Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusion Policies, along with the IQAC. On this particular conference, we are having on the dais our resource person, Professor Dr. Sujata Bhau. She is from SNDT, Mumbai. Our own colleagues, Professor Jagan Karade, who is heading the Department of Sociology. In the same department, we have been organizing this particular conference from so many days. She is running behind to come to this particular day, that is Pratibha Desai. And we're having also in this particular hall, Professor Pratibha, Professor Mane, Professor Langre, Professor Vaswani, Professor Patil, ladies and gentlemen. This particular conference which we have organized, the reason behind this is from the academic year 20 to 23, when SHIVAJI University has been initiated in various states to implement this particular national program. This particular policy, though it is almost completing 2 years, but from this particular academic year, the SHIVAJI University has initiated this program for university department as well as affiliated colleges. And national education policy, the vision of this particular policy, as we know that internationalization and universalization of education, of course, which also includes the persons with disabilities, and related to that, the madam has given much more weightage. As a statutory officer of the SHIVAJI University, I would like to give some kind of impact. It would be very useful to the today's key person, what the university is doing for the community as well as the society. Here, one of the references I will give, for example, we're having a nearby school, what we call as Helpers Associated School in Kolhapur. And the Shivaji University, not only the officers of the university, but even the vice chancellor of the university, as well as the pro-vice chancellor of the university, has visited that particular school for some of the programs. And very next day, they have given target to the officers that why can't we do something for that particular school also? And immediately, with the help of the Pratibha Desai madam, we have been organized one of the camp. The camp was associated with, for example, how one can identify the creativity of such kinds of peoples. And the university has went to that particular school, Helpers with Handicap School, which is very close. And we have identified, we have taken the what kind of programs as well as the presentation of that, and the expert have been understood that. And from that particular presentation, one of the person which we find that is having a lot of creativity. And what he did, he made colleague mania, what we prepare for data making. And that was incubated in the Shivaji University. And that is also well recognized by the Maharashtra state government of Maharashtra. But this kind of creativity, which the persons with disability people which are also having, so we should not ignore this set of people. We should see that they are the part and parcel of this particular community. So as a national education policy being a holistic approach, it includes everybody. What is the definitely outcome of this particular national education policy in a years to come that will come out? I mean, this is the beginning. Now, the maybe 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, we'll see the performance of that. But one can visualize that what is expected in this particular policy. If we take the case of India, we know that India is the second largest populated country in the world next to the China, and who is the youngest size of population, whose average age is somewhere around 30 to 32%, the proportion is 65%. For the 65% people which are in this particular flow. You have mentioned, madam, that the what one call as the gross enrollment ratio from the primary to secondary to the higher secondary, which is slowly and gradually, which is going down from 97%. And as of today, if you see of the 2022 statistics, we come to that the gross enrollment ratio of higher education institute is somewhere around 28 to 30%. So to that extent, the enrollment ratio which is going on. Forget about the teacher-student ratio. This is also the one of the mandate which every qualitative agency which is giving, including the NAC, you are also associated with that. But with this kind of process, the national education policy, which is the policy which has been implemented by the Shivaji University, where we have come out with the internship kind of programs, what we call as research-related project, and where we have classified this particular content in the form of vertical as well as horizontal mobility. So this is the beginning where the Shivaji University, for all its affiliated colleges, 277 colleges that are associated with this particular university, where we are implementing with this. And as you mentioned about the campus, which is accessible to the PWD or not, definitely our campus is accessible. The Desai madam in the various meetings is putting forth all these points. Each building must be made to the accessible. I think except few buildings, most of the buildings in the campus, which are almost 50% plus buildings which are accessible to this. But as a student of or a researcher of the humanity, what I feel that education, though it is a mandatory, education, though it gives the skill, education, we should be the inclusive. Various kind of documents before the independence as well as after the independence, if you analyze, almost 40 plus documents which have been come out from the government of India, which are available in the portal of the government. Almost 20 are before the independence and 20 and 21st of this NEP which are after the independence. Each document talk about accessibility. Each document talk about the quality. Each document talk about how one can increase the enrollment ratio within this. But definitely this kind of document, which is a comprehensive document, which has taken care of each one. And that is why, if this document takes care of each one, what we expect from this kind of national education policy, we know that, for example, one can have to have a sustainable development. And this sustainable development is not the new word or not the buzzword. We had the earlier the programs like Millennium Development Goals till 2015. Subsequently, we have entered into the Sustainable Development Goal, what we call as SDG, and see made a reference about SDG goal number 4. That is very, very important. But almost that 17 goals of SDG, which are very important, and each educational institution, including the community, should look after how one can attain all these SDG. So the point here is, whatever the policies, whatever the programs which comes out, definitely they are for whom? They are definitely for the community. They are definitely for you and me, which are the part and parcel of this particular society. And that is why there are certain documents at an international level which have been get published by UNDP. One of the documents I will make a reference here is of Human Development Report, what we call as HDR. So if you see almost 150 to 200 countries globally, we come across that where India stands. Though we say that 40 documents till date which have been published by the government of India related to education, but our India's HDI ranking is not improved to core 130. I mean, we are in the range of 130 to 132 to 135. To that extent, the Human Development Report document of India, which comes out, national education policy, which focuses more on multiple entries and multiple exit, along with multidisciplinary approach. That is what should be taken into account. And if that is what followed, then we'll have the mobility of vertical as well as horizontal mobility. But moving ahead and talking about, can we only give the education to the extent of the classroom teaching? Some kind of practical education, some kind of experiential learning, some kind of pedagogical changes, which are very much important in the curriculum, and that is expected within this. And if you see that, for example, entrepreneurial activities or job-related activities or innovation-related activities, where does India stand? If you go back and see almost 10 years back, what was the ranking of India globally in Global Innovation Index? The ranking of India was almost 85th to 86th internationally. And in 2022, that ranking we have been broken and we are at the stage of 40, 40. So to that extent, India is moving ahead. And that is why these kind of changes in NEP, in educational system is required to make our education system more employable system. So this kind of program, this kind of workshop, which has been organized by the Department of Sociology as well as the Center of Disabilities and Social Inclusion Center, for the benefit of all this. And I understood that most of the participants are from the helpers association as well as from other categories. On behalf of the Shivaji University, almost I welcome all of you. And I know that in a 2 days deliberation of this particular conference, you will get something more. And for this particular conference, not only for this particular conference, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor D.T. Sitti, as well as the Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor P.S. Patil, who are always in constant touch, how one can improve the facilities within the university as well as the accessibilities of our infrastructure to all the students. With these few words, once again, I place my sincere thanks to all the organizers as well as the participants for coming over here and inviting me for this particular program. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing this important information with all of us and for your kind words. Now, I request Dr. M.S. Vaswani, Associate Professor in the Department of English, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, to give the vote of thanks.
Okay, am I audible? Yes. So good afternoon, all. So all the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, the participants in this conference, and all the students. I'm here to offer a vote of thanks for this session. So first of all, I'm thankful to Dr. Pratibha Desai for the wonderful organization of this seminar. And I'm also thankful to the resource person for her enlightening speech. It was really good, ma'am. And I also thank Dr. M.S. Deshmukh, the Dean of Humanities, for his enlightening comments. I'm also thankful to the audience because without the audience, no program is complete. And there must be hundreds and hundreds of other people who are involved in the organization of this seminar whom I cannot name. So everyone is important and everyone has contributed to the organization of this successful session. So I'm thankful to all for making this session a wonderful session for all of us. And I'm sure we'll enjoy all the remaining sessions of this conference. Thanks once again. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Now we shall all halt for a short break, requesting everyone to kindly be back in the hall shortly, as we will be beginning with our sessions now.
Madam.
हाँ बोला बोला
हॅलो कोल्हा मॅम
हाँ बोलते हैं आवाज येतोय हाँ मी शेअर करू का
वी विल स्टार्ट विदिन 5 minutes मॅम
अच्छा आय शेअर इट
मॅडम 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 प्रेझेंट
हाँ
कसं करायचं लवकर
Right click. Change.
We'll start our first Q&A session within 5 minutes. So I'll request the audience to be seated.
Ma'am, we will start our session within 5 minutes, ma'am.
In 5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am. Just inaugural function has ended.
Okay, I am seeing that. Yeah, yeah.
Students are taking some rest.
Yes, yes, certainly. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sanjay, so nice to see you, sir.
Yeah,
Vaishali.
Shali ma'am, क्या बनता? How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
How is life?
Yeah, yeah, it's going on, sir.
Great.
सर
great.
आपका सेकंड इश्यू आला हा मी तुम्हाला मेल केलेला आहे
How दिसला ना मला congratulations.
थँक्यू सर
Congratulations.
सो बोलूया आपण
Yes. थोड़ा वीडियो बंद करो.
सर मी तुम्हाला दिसत आहे का?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
आणि माझं सेशन पण दिसत आहे ना तुम्हाला?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
अच्छा, स्क्रीनवर आहे ना?
Yes, yes.
चालेल. अच्छा, माझा ना एक मध्ये व्हिडिओ आहे माझा.
Sir.
प्ले होतोय का? जस्ट चेक करा. मी असं दाखवू का तुम्हाला एक?
हाँ, हाँ, ma'am. No problem.
योगिता,
Share screen, madam.
F5 करू?
बघा कसं दिसतंय.
अच्छा, ऑल करते मी, थांबा. हा,
हाँ, दिसते madam.
मी काय करते आता, एक मिनिट. मी असं केलं मी बघा आता. आता दिसते. आता मी थांबा, मी हे करते, स्क्रोल करते फक्त थोडं. हा,
हाँ,
दिसतंय ना?
हाँ, yes, ma'am.
दिसतंय. आणि इथे बघा एक व्हिडिओ आहे. ऑन होतोय का? मी ऑन केला बघा. थांबा एक मिनिट. आता मी इथे ह्याला ऑन केला मी. हा, ऑन केला.
कट कर.
येतोय ना?
हाँ, दिसते madam.
ओके ओके. हे राहू दे, राहू दे.
काढतो थांब. हात पडतील तुझे. पैसे नाहीत बाबा तुझ्याकडे. पैसे तुला भेटायला पाहिजे.
ते प्रिंटआउट काढले का?
Madam, video ला voice नाही आहे.
व्हिडिओला व्हॉइस नाही आहे?
नाही, आवाज येत नाही.
अच्छा, थांबा, मी ट्राय करते, थांबा. मला तर आली व्हॉइस.
इथं ब्रेक व्हायला लागलाय इंटरनेट प्रॉब्लेम मुळे, कनेक्टिव्हिटी मुळे.
नाही नाही, तुम्हाला फक्त मला येत आहे आवाज. तुम्ही थोडस त्याला एक मिनिट मी ट्राय करते, थांबा.
म्हणजे इट इज अ लिरिकल और जस्ट इंस्ट्रुमेंटल?
इन्स्ट्रुमेंटल
हाँ, इंस्ट्रुमेंटल येते का प्रॉब्लेम?
इन्स्ट्रुमेंटल आवाज, म्युझिक आला ना?
हाँ.
हा, आला ना? बस तेवढंच. चालेल चालेल. हा, म्हणजे इन्स्ट्रुमेंटल तुम्हाला आवाज आला ना? तेवढंच. हा, अच्छा, मी मराठीत बोलू की इंग्रजीत बोलू की हिंदी?
मराठी विल बी फाइन.
अच्छा, मी इंग्लिश मराठी असं करते मध्ये मध्ये.
ठीक आहे.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I am Vishwajit Mai with my co-host Manorama Kalve. We bid a warm welcome to the dignitaries and the audience present here on the 2 days conference on National Education Policy 2020 and Persons with Disabilities in Higher Education, organized by Department of Sociology under the UGC scheme for Persons with Disabilities, Center for Study of the Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policies and Internal Quality Assurance Cell, SHIVAJI University, Kolhapur. We will begin with the first plenary session now. For this session, we are honored to have Dr. Vaishali Kolhe, Associate Professor, Center for Disability Studies and Actions, TISS Mumbai, as the guest speaker. We also have Sri Surendranath Babar sir, Research Scholar, Department of Sociology, SHIVAJI University, Kolhapur, as the coordinator of this session. I heartily welcome you both.
Thank you.
I request Sri Surendranath Babar sir to welcome and introduce the resource person for the first plenary session, Dr. Vaishali Kolhe, Associate Professor, Center for Disability Studies and Actions, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai.
First of all, माइक लागणार इथून लागणार नाही आवाज फक्त कमी करा माइक हातात द्या.
Hello.
First of all, I welcome all of you at the National Conference on National Education Policy 2020 and Persons with Disability in Higher Education, organized by UGC-Scheme for Persons with Disabilities, Department of Sociology, for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, Internet Assurance Cell, Internet Quality Assurance Cell, SHIVAJI University, Kolhapur. Today, for the two-day national conference, at the very first plenary session, we have Dr. Vaishali Kolhe Madam as a speaker. Madam will deliver her thoughts and ideas regarding the topic of session, that is National Education Policy 2020 and Accessibility Guidelines and Disability Inclusion in Higher Education. Before I request Kolhe Madam to deliver thoughts, I would like to introduce Madam's curriculum in brief. Dr. Vaishali Kolhe, PhD in Speech Disability, Associate Professor and former Chairperson of the TISS Mumbai. She joined as an Assistant Professor in Department of Medical Psychiatric Social Work in June 2020 and joined Center for Disability Studies and Action in June 2006. She is primarily engaged in teaching, training, research, audits, and consultation in field of rehabilitation and disability inclusion in health, mental health, early intervention, inclusive higher education, skill development, and accessibility. She is actively engaged and worked with mental health issues of child laborers in Dharavi and their skill development empowerment 2004. She worked TISS tsunami disaster activities at Kadlur district with coastal villages on needs and assessment and trauma counseling for crisis intervention and rapid assessment during disaster. She has presented various papers on national international conferences. One of the paper on reconstructing the new legislation for persons with disability by implementing the UNCRPD framework. In Indian context, we were presented at Conference Education for All, University of Warsaw, Poland, 2011. She had been to University of Gothenburg, Sweden, as a faculty exchange program for teaching and collaboration during April 2011. In 2011-13, she headed research project on micro-level planning of disability in MWAT to develop People's Development Plan on Disability, which CBR is now developed in Early Intervention Center in collaboration with another NGO, a pre-therapeutic rehabilitation center for 50 children with disability. A field-based awareness program organized Disability Railway Project Mumbai, local Merijan, from where students were engaged in street play, theaters, and exhibition for awareness and disability sanitation program for authorities public computers 2013. She is also instrumental in initiating first field action project I Access Rights Mission Peace Initiative for Inclusion and Accessibility at the Center for Disability Studies and Action on Issues of Students with Disability in Higher Education and Accessibility Issues, which has developed two government regulations on teaching, learning, public exam of 21 types of disabilities and making universities with implement barrier-free environment. This is pioneer project of India in the field of higher education, enabling inclusion and innovation for students with disability. In 2014, organized a roundtable conference with various CSR heads on inclusive empowerment of persons with disability, focusing on mainstreaming PWD and skill development with a sustainable livelihood framework as at peace with Sarthak Trust on 19th November 2014. She was also invited for the chairing a session on NGOs in disability sector in National Conference Vision for India. National Conference on Disability on September 12, 2014 at India Islamic Culture Center, Delhi, organized by Sarthak on 15 to 17 April 2016. She organized an international conference on disability rights, accessibility, and inclusion in India at TIS. She is currently teaching subjects related to disability, human rights, social policies, and laws. Rehabilitation context of persons with disability involves lifespan approach, sustainability, development goals, livelihood frameworks, facilitating organizing job fairs with NAACOH as a part of fieldwork activities since past 5 years for the youth of disabilities. She member of Sexual Harassment Committee, member for various corporates and Mantralaya. She is a member of CII Task Force for TIS. She is a state advisory board member as a disability inclusion expert appointed by Government of Maharashtra. In 2016, 17 and 18, organized the National Conference on Disability, Accessibility, Inclusion and Well-being as TIS initiative to create platform for all the professionals to dialogue on emerging issues in the context of RPWD Act 2016 and legal and policy practices and bring best practices in the country on disability inclusion, innovation, inviting WHO UN representatives. Thank you. I welcome you, ma'am. Please present your.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this elaborate description of my CV. I'm really honored to be here. Respected Vice Chancellor, sir, respected Professor Jagan Karade, Head of the Department of Sociology and Director of Center for Study for Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policies, Professor M.S. Deshmukh, Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Director of Quality Assurance Cell, SHIVAJI University, and the convener of the conference today, Dr. Pratibha Desai. I'm really honored to be here to present my thoughts on the very important topic of NEP and disability. So today my topic is NEP 2020 and accessibility guidelines and disability inclusion in higher education. I was listening to the previous speaker, the honorable speaker, and all the concepts which you have gained from the session. I think they are very important, and also a few key elements which were highlighted by Dr. Deshmukh in terms of how NEP has become a very significant landmark for transforming the education system in the country. So my presentation is divided into two parts. One is the NEP 2020 and disability and accessibility guidelines, and the second part is disability inclusion. So when we talk about disability inclusion, it's all about rising above all the barriers. And these barriers can be structural, physical, architectural, social, cultural, linguistic barriers, or they may be academic barriers faced by the students with disabilities, or any specific attitudinal barriers which a student or a person with disability has encountered. One thought which I want to share very, very categorically here, that people with disability do not require pity. They require equal entitlements in the education system, so they independently flourish as individuals and professionals in their respective field. I want to show you my first slide. If you look at it in terms of, these are all learners in any education system. And this is taken by, the Einstein quote, which Einstein has said that if you judge where all these are diverse learners in the education system, and in order to, so in this picture, if I have to describe the image description, there are all learners. There is a fish, there's an elephant, there's a penguin, there is a monkey, there is a crow, there is a fish, there is a seal, and there is a dog. And the teacher is sitting on the table and saying that you all have to perform in a fair way, and everybody has to give the same exam. So you can imagine, and in the examination, everybody has to climb the tree. So imagine that all people have to climb the tree. So the condition of the fish, that how a fish can climb the tree. So this is what the Einstein said, that everyone is genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will think the whole life believing that it is stupid. So this is what happens with when a person with disability faces the barriers in the society. So one of the very important and significant point is now disability inclusion has become the national agenda for the university, Grants Commission, and also the higher education system in the country after the landmark judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court. I will talk in Marathi and English both in between because of the language which you all understand. तर आधी सुप्रीम डिसेबिलिटी जे आहे तो आपला अजेंडा नव्हता. तर आता काळाची गरज अशी भासलेली आहे की डिसेबिलिटी हॅज बिकम अजेंडा झालेला आहे आपल्या गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडियाचा, की सगळं जे करिक्युलम आहे त्याला कसं डिसेबल फ्रेंडली किंवा इन्क्लुझिव्ह अँड ॲक्सेसिबल करावं ह्याची जी धोरण आहे ती बनत आहे नॅशनल लेवलवर, नॅशनल पातळीवर, स्टेट पातळीवर, आणि सगळे डिसेबिलिटी कमिशनर जे आहेत त्याच्यावर काम करत आहे त्यांच्या रिस्पेक्टिव्ह सोशल वेलफेअर डिपार्टमेंट सोबत. तर so I want to say very predominantly and that now disability has become the agenda of the higher education curriculum, and UGC has created a guideline. Yeah. Can you hear me?
पीपीटी दिसत नाहीये.
मी दिसत नाहीये तुम्हाला?
म्हणजे ते हे दिसते, ते मगाचा व्हिडिओ दिसतोय.
अच्छा, व्हिडिओ दिसतोय. अच्छा, वन मोमेंट. आता दिसतोय? हे दिसत आहे?
नाही.
आता दिसत आहे? हे दिसत आहे?
नाही.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing and then do it again. One moment. कसं करायचं? Stop sharing. I'll share it again.
Okay.
आता दिसतोय?
हो, दिसत आहे. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can see, right? Okay. I'll just put it this is okay for you, na? You can see this, right? Or it's smaller for you?
Slideshow program.
Acha, I'll do the slideshow. Can you see this? The yellow page?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So as I just now told you that NEP 2020 is transforming our education system in the country, and disability has become a national agenda in terms of including the people with disabilities in the curriculum, in the reservation system, in the environment, the infrastructure environment of the university as a system, and making the entire university system as inclusive and accessible. So my presentation, as I told you, I'm divided into two parts. One is the NEP 2020 context and accessibility guidelines given by UGC, which is very important for you to know. And the second component is about the disability inclusion. So can you see the second slide? The universal design for all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this slide, if there is an image in this particular slide, the image consists of all the diverse learners and the teacher sitting and asking that every learner has to give the same exam. And the exam is they have to climb the tree. And there is a fish over there. She cannot climb the tree. So this is Einstein. It's based on the Einstein quote. Can you see the slide, please?
Yes, ma'am.
That everybody is genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb the tree, the whole life it will believe that it is stupid. And this is what happens when we want a blind person to read, to access all the curriculum, and the person is unable to access without the assistive devices, which is a primary need of an individual or a student or a learner. So I want to share with you the various concepts which was told by the previous speaker, the honorable speaker. So I want to highlight here at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, we have started a field action project called I-Access. I means a student with disability. Access is a human right of a student. He should be able to access all university. So we create this inclusive awareness programs called I-Access Mehfil in TISS for the entire campus, and the subject is disability and human differences. And I just wanted to share this small video with you where the rising above all barriers. Can you see the video? Yeah. So this is a small video which I have just showcased here in front of you, where we have in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, we have 50 MA programs in development sector. And imagine all the students from different diverse sectors, they are talking and on the issue of disability and inclusion. So whether it's disaster management, whether it's rural development, whether it's any other particular course, they are talking about the disability inclusion. So which is, and they're using all art forms to perform. So, this is just I thought that maybe it will be good to share based on the previous speakers, that, creating an awareness program in universities. You can always do that on 3rd December, which is an International Day for Persons with Disability. So coming back to the main introduction of my presentation today on the National Education Policy 2020, which is passed by the Union Cabinet of India on 29th July 2020, and with the vision of transforming the education system And it is basically transformed the replaces the earlier policy of National Policy on Education 1986 to the new Education Policy 2020. So it is having a very comprehensive framework of from elementary education to higher education till vocational training, both in rural and urban India. The policy transforms India's education system by 2040. And if you look at the new education policy, it has 27 chapters highlighting how various sections of our society can be included in the education system. Just an example I want to share with you that unless and until the inclusion is all about breaking all kind of barriers, social, cultural, educational, or academic, all barriers which are faced by vulnerable communities, how you break all these barriers and come together with a genuine value of social cohesion. So it's all about bonding together, coming together, and learning together to enjoy towards independence of as a personhood and also as a professional in the higher education context. So NEP has 4 parts, as you all know, and the Ministry of HRD is now reformed as Education Ministry, promoting the spirit of Ek Bharat and Shresth Bharat. So that also speaks about the language of inclusion, that how unity becomes a very important part of the education policy. That coming together, an inclusive curriculum has become one of the very important and significant part of the new education policy. So if you look at, it talks about the universal high quality education, which can develop the country's talent and resources. And it is for the good for the individual and society as a whole. And it talks about the holistic curriculum and holistic education system. It talks about the Sustainable Development Goal number 4 in terms of ensuring inclusivity and equitable education and quality education to promote the lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. So it is a very ambitious goal, but the new education policy, which we all have to work towards it, and disability has become an agenda for the new education policy 2020. So recently, the Supreme Court of India, Justice Chandrachud has, our CGI, Honorable CGI, has given directions to the UGC to transform disability inclusion and transform all the education system to include people with disability under the Article 9 of UNCRPD, which is accessibility. And I'm happy to say that, state that we have all contributed to this development of this accessibility guidelines by UGC, which has come up in August 2022. So I'm going to share with you these guidelines, and there are 10 chapters to these guidelines, which I'm going to share with you. The second element, if you want to look at the new education policy, it basically having a fundamental principles of recognizing individual capacities and unique capabilities of each student by sensitizing the teachers as well as parents as stakeholders to develop a holistic curriculum and development of the student in all academic spheres. It also talks about achieving foundational literacy and numeracy of all students. Recently, Pratham as an organization has done a study on literacy, and they have found that more than 50% students of 7th and 8th standard do not have literacy skills. They can't read and write. So it talks about that a big gap in the education system and how we as professionals have to work towards it. And when you take the disability as a population, or persons with disability as a population, they stand at the margins. So it's very important that we have to think about persons with disability in order to include them into the mainstream. And that is why the concept, which is now called as disability inclusion, has been introduced by United Nations as a fundamental concept to mainstream people with disability. So third element of a new education policy, or the third fundamental principle of new education policy, is flexibility in the curriculum and the learning trajectories and programs. The fourth one is about the multidisciplinary approach, that, how it's important to bridge the gap between arts and science and see to it that there is a multidisciplinary approach. I had a student with learning, she was a merit student. So I asked her that, how come congratulations that you are a merit student, you're a topper in your college. So she said, Madam, I'm a LD student, a student with learning disability. I just changed my one subject from maths to theater. And my father is a theater artist and he taught me theater, the way which I am able to learn. So that's why I taught in the college by, substituting one subject. So how one subject substitution facility and flexibility can really make a student to reach to the merit. Then fifth element is conceptual understanding rather than rote learning and learning for the exams. The next one is critical thinking. Now we all are, taught in our academic framework that we have to develop a scientific and rigorous thinking in order to creatively come out and learn about our subjects and the concepts of the subjects. All these are very, very important. Then next is ethics of human and constitutional values, promoting multilingualism and power of language. I think this is being talked about the previous speaker. Promoting life skills. I think this is one of the very fundamental skills which the NEP want to promote in terms of see to it that the life skills, no matter whatever your education background, but you should master the life skills so that you conquer all kind of odds in your life and come out successfully as an entrepreneur or as a student. Then formative learning and learning rather than summative learning. So these are the fundamental principles the new education policy has promoted. My next slide, if you look at, is about talking about the structure of NEP. So can you see this, slide? Yeah. So this is a slide which is talking about the structure of NEP. So how 10+2 curriculum structure has been reformed as 5+3+3+4 structure, and how a new system has proposed of 12 years of school education with 3 years of schooling. And it talks about the new education structure, that 5+3+3+4 foundation formula, where the first 5 years are being looked as one of the very foundation years of every learner, and then 3 to 8 years where the children learn to the primary education. And then it talks about the 11 to 14 years, class 4 to 8 standard, and then class 9 to 12 standard. So how this talks about the foundational stages of learning, then preparatory, middle, secondary stages of learning towards to the higher education. So coming to the next part of, how one has to, so I'm going to focus on the higher education. So where the inclusion has become a very important goal of transforming the education system, the curriculum into inclusive pedagogies so that all learners are included in the curriculum. My next slide is, can you see my slide? Yeah. My, my next slide is immediately going to the accessibility guidelines. Yeah. So, so basically it's the NEP talks about the transforming the curriculum and pedagogies, and how we need to look at the pedagogical structure into a more flexible, more multidisciplinary, more accepting the all diverse learners into the curriculum building process. So it's very important that all of us as teachers and working in the academic field see to it that our pedagogy, course curriculum or course plan is inclusive. And if we have 1 or 2 students with disability in our classroom, see to it that you dialogue with them, you talk to them, you find out what are their needs, and you include that as a part of the curriculum in order to make it inclusive. So, so this is the NEP structure, the new pedagogical structure and the curricular structure of school education and toward till the higher education. So in the higher education, they talk about the 4 years of degree system, and they talk about the 1 year of master's program, and then they also talk about the taking off the MPhil and 4 years of PhD. So this is what largely the higher education talks about in terms of making it with the multiple exit and multiple entry. You allow a student to learn without wasting their first years or any particular year, which was not there earlier. So I'm straight away coming to the main point of the accessibility guidelines by UGC. To me, Government of Maharashtra has released a GR of 4/3/2017. गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्राने एक GR रिलीज केला होता 2017 मध्ये. ते तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे का? ऑन एक्झामिनेशन ऑफ स्टुडंट्स विथ डिसेबिलिटी इन हायर एज्युकेशन. तुम्हाला माहिती आहे का त्या GR बद्दल? ज्यांना माहिती हात वरती करू शकता. कोणाला माहिती नाहीये त्या GR बद्दल? एकांनी केलंय वाटते हात वरती. तर मला तुम्हाला सांगायचं आहे की गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्राने एक GR रिलीज केलेला आहे फॉर 21 टाइप्स ऑफ स्टुडंट्स विथ डिसेबिलिटी फॉर गिव्हिंग देम एक्झाम प्रोव्हिजन्स. म्हणजे एक्झाम मध्ये काय फॅसिलिटीज त्यांना पाहिजे ह्याच्यावर त्यांनी एक GR रिलीज केलेला आहे. तर ते संपूर्ण महाराष्ट्रामध्ये ऍप्लिकेबल आहे. तर त्याची कॉपी मी मॅडमला सेंड करेन आणि ते तुम्ही तुमच्याशी शेअर करणार. ते GR इम्प्लिमेंटेशन फारच महत्वाचं आहे इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ NEP and in context of the accessibility guidelines. So I will share this part. Yeah. So I'm straight away coming to the higher education component in terms of accessibility guidelines. So these are the highlights of the new education policy, which is focusing on the universal access of education. म्हणजे आता जसं मॅडमनी सांगितलं की सगळे जे विद्यार्थी आहेत ते डिसेबल्ड असू शकतात, ते क्वेअर कम्युनिटीचे असू शकतात, ते ट्रान्सजेंडर असू शकतात, ते EWS ची कॅटेगरीचे असू शकतात, किंवा ते ट्रायबल कम्युनिटीचे असू शकतात, किंवा ते दलित कम्युनिटीचे असू शकतात. आता मला हे सांगायचं खूप बरं वाटतं इकडे की आमच्या टाटा इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ सोशल सायन्सेसमध्ये आता स्टुडंट इलेक्शन झाले आणि स्टुडंट इलेक्शन्स मध्ये सगळे कॅटेगरीचे मुलं उभे होते आणि त्याच्यामध्ये जे प्रेसिडेंट निवडून आला तो ट्रान्सजेंडर आहे. तो क्वेअर कम्युनिटीचा ट्रान्सजेंडर पर्सन आहे आणि तो दलित कम्युनिटीचा पण आहे. तो यू कॅन इमॅजिन म्हणजे एक स्टुडंट जो क्वेअर कम्युनिटीचा आहे आणि दलित कम्युनिटीचा आहे ॲज अ इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ इंटरसेक्शनॅलिटी, म्हणजे 2 आयडेंटिटीज मध्ये तो येतो आणि ॲज अ प्रेसिडेंट. तर मला असं वाटतं की हे ग्लोबल लेवलमध्ये फर्स्ट टाइम असं झालं आहे की कुठलाही स्टुडंट एक ट्रान्सजेंडर एक स्टुडंट युनियनचा रेप्रेझेंटेटिव्ह बनलेला आहे आणि स्टुडंटचा रेप्रेझेंटेटिव्ह बनला आहे. तर आपण ह्या गोष्टीला किती एक्सेप्ट करू शकतो हे आपल्याला स्वतःला विचारायला पाहिजे. आणि मला असं वाटतं की जेव्हापर्यंत आपल्यामध्ये ही व्हॅल्यू किंवा ही भावना येत नाही की आपण किती पण डायव्हर्स लर्नर्स असो किंवा किती पण डायव्हर्सिटी ऑफ आयडेंटिटी असणार, पण आपण त्या माणसाला एक्सेप्ट करू शकतो का आपल्या क्लासरूममध्ये, आपल्या नेबरहुडमध्ये, आपल्या हॉस्टेलच्या रूममध्ये, आपल्या फॅकल्टी रूममध्ये ॲज अ कलिग, आपल्या युनिव्हर्सिटीच्या सिस्टममध्ये, आपल्या क्लास 4च्या फ्रेटर्निटीमध्ये किंवा एक ग्रासरूट लेवल वर्कर जे आपल्या घरी कामाला येतो त्यांच्या अनुषंगाने, तर आपली ही भावना एक निर्माण करावी लागणार आपल्याला की किती पण डायव्हर्स कम्युनिटीचा किंवा आयडेंटिटीचा तो पर्सन असेल तरी पण त्याला एक्सेप्ट करणं ही सगळ्यात काळाची गरज झालेली आहे आता. आणि ह्याच्यावर आता कॉन्स्टिट्युशनली जे आहे ते अधिकार दिलेले आहे अंडर RPWD ऍक्ट. ते सर सांगतीलच तुम्हाला आता जयंत सर. तर मला असं वाटतं की ऍट द एंड ऑफ द डे युनिव्हर्सिटी सिस्टममध्ये सगळे डायव्हर्स लर्नर्सला एक्सेप्ट करणं, टीचर्सनी एक्सेप्ट करणं, अथॉरिटीजनी एक्सेप्ट करणं, एक्झाम कंट्रोलर्सनी एक्सेप्ट करणं, ऍडमिनिस्ट्रेशनने एक्सेप्ट करणं हे फार काळाची गरज झालेली आहे. आणि जे UGC जे एक्सेसिबिलिटी गाईडलाईन्स आहे ते आपल्याला हेच सांगत आहे की एखादा मुलगा, ब्लाइंड मुलगा जर आपल्या कॉलेजमध्ये आला तर तो कॉलेजच्या अवतीभोवती स्वतःहून इंडिपेंडेंटली फिरू शकला पाहिजे. तो क्लासरूम मध्ये इंडिपेंडेंटली येऊ शकला पाहिजे. क्लासरूम मध्ये जे टीचर शिकवत आहे त्याच्या मोबाईलवर किंवा त्याच्या कम्प्युटरवर किंवा त्याच्या एक लर्निंग डिव्हाइसवर तिथे ऍक्सेसिबल झाला पाहिजे. आणि दिस इज कमिंग फ्रॉम providing them equal entitlements, equity, and all possible resources to them in order to make them independent individuals of the country. तर ही भावना जेव्हापर्यंत आपण निर्माण करत नाही तेव्हापर्यंत आपण इन्क्लुजन आणू शकणार नाही किंवा त्याचे दिवस आपल्याला जेव्हापर्यंत लॉ आणि ज्युडिशरी इन्व्हॉल्व नाही होणार तेव्हापर्यंत आपण करत नाही. पण आता ती काळाची गरज झालेली आहे. सुप्रीम कोर्टने आपल्याला सांगितलेलं आहे की तुम्हाला पर्सन विथ डिसेबिलिटीला सगळ्या सेक्टरमध्ये इन्क्लूड करायची गरज आहे. आणि ह्याच्यासाठीच NEP 2020 मध्ये सोशली डिसएडव्हान्टेज कॅटेगरी काही लिमिटेशन्स पण आहे NEP मध्ये. पण UGC has given now the guidelines, and also Government of Maharashtra has worked on various kinds of GRs for examination, that is 4/3/2017 and 27 August 2018. हे 2 GRs आहे on accessibility and exam provision for persons with disability. हे मला आवर्जून सांगायचे आहे तुम्हाला या वर्कशॉपमध्ये, म्हणून की हे सगळे 2 GR जर तुमच्या युनिव्हर्सिटी कॅम्पसमध्ये किंवा कॉलेजमध्ये तुम्ही इम्प्लिमेंट केले तर हे खूप गरजेचं आहे तुमच्यासाठी. Coming back to the straight to the UGC guidelines and accessibility guidelines. Can you see my slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, so these are the UGC accessibility guidelines. हे वेबसाईट वर पण अवेलेबल आहे. पण मला तुम्हाला हे सांगायचं आहे की हे these accessibility guidelines are extremely important, and every vice chancellor, registrar, college principal, all teachers, all university stakeholders have to implement it. And how to implement it? All directions, rules, regulations are mentioned in the accessibility guidelines of University Grants Commission, August 2022. And these guidelines have come on the basis of the directions from our Honorable CGI, Honorable Chandrachud ji, Justice Chandrachud, giving it to the UGC in January 2022. And this was based on the Justice A.K. Sikri's guidelines, landmark judgment of 15 December 2017, where Justice A.K. Sikri has said that all universities should be made accessible in a time-bound manner. So he gave responsibility, he laid down the entire structure that how every university should maintain a quarterly report. Now, what do you mean by quarterly report? 3 monthly reports सगळे युनिव्हर्सिटीनी बनवले पाहिजे की तुम्ही काय काय तरतूद केलेली आहे, काय फॅसिलिटी दिलेले आहे स्टुडंट विथ डिसेबिलिटींना, आणि त्याच्यामध्ये अवेअरनेस प्रोग्राम्स किती केले, रॅम्प्स किती बांधले, बिल्डिंग्स किती बांधले, वॉशरूम्स किती बांधले, करिक्युलम चेंजेस काय काय केले, एक्झाम प्रोव्हिजन्स काय काय दिले, हे सगळं त्या क्वार्टरली रिपोर्टमध्ये आलं पाहिजे. दुसरी गोष्ट त्यांनी जे जस्टिस A.K. सिक्रीनी सांगितली ती इक्वल अपॉर्च्युनिटी सेल and how equal opportunity cell will work in order to make it more stronger with more budget provisions, and all teachers have to make the curriculum accessible. So Justice A.K. Sikri basically pointed out three major parameters in his judgment of 15 December 2017. The first parameter was reservation for persons with disability. Then second parameter was barrier-free environment to make all the buildings accessible for persons with disability in a time-bound manner. And third parameter was curriculum accessibility. So based on that, we have worked with the government of Maharashtra, and we helped the government of Maharashtra to draft, we meaning I-Access Rights Mission, Tata Institute of Social Sciences as a pre-election project. We worked with the government of Maharashtra, Directorate of Higher Education, to draft various kinds of GRs in order to ensure that accessibility is being promoted at a larger level, at an institutional level, by all the university stakeholders. So why I'm telling you this, because this is a Maharashtra context which can be actually taken as an example, and you all can easily implement it in your respective colleges. So coming back to the UGC accessibility guidelines and standards for educational institutions and universities, the first chapter talks about accessibility in higher education institutions as a provisions, as a policy perspective. And it talks about a holistic approach. So it has introduced the concept of accessibility. Now, what is the concept of accessibility? When you say access, it means entry, use, and exit, which means that any system you take, any classroom you take, you should be able to enter into the classroom. Second, you should be able to use the classroom. And third, you should be able to exit. Like you see a lot of railway platforms, I've interviewed a lot of people with disabilities, and when they say we are able to enter into the railway platforms, we are able to use and reach to the train, but we don't know how to exit the railway stations. So the exit become a problem. So that means the accessibility guidelines will affect in that context where the accessibility is not achieved in the railway stations. I just gave a quote and example for your easy understanding. The same thing happens with the higher education institutions, that every classroom should be made accessible, which means easy entry, easy exit, and easy use within that. And it should have a very holistic approach.
Ma'am?
The second chapter talks about, I'll just cover the main points. Chapter 2 talks about the needs assessment. The needs assessment of students with disabilities. Now, what do you mean by needs assessment? That, it's very important. Like we have students with disability of all kinds, like the blind, student with blindness, students with deafness, students with blood-related disabilities. You have to say something?
Yes, ma'am. We are running out of time. We have
Yeah.
only 10 minutes now.
Yeah, all right. I'll do that, yeah. So the second chapter is on the needs assessment. So you should be able to assess the needs of the students with disability and support the provisions. So it talks about, like we have the GR for examination, so which is based on the needs assessed by the persons with disability. So in the needs assessment, there are general needs, and then second is there are disability specific needs. म्हणजे जनरल नीड्स मध्ये आता हे जे GR आहे एक्झामिनेशनचा, आमच्याकडे एक युनिव्हर्सिटीमध्ये 2 LLB करणारे विद्यार्थी जे डिस्लेक्सिक आहे, त्यांची आई सगळ्या युनिव्हर्सिटीच्या लोकांना पत्र लिहित आहे की प्लीज माझ्या मुलाला एक्झाम सेंटर आमच्या ह्याच्या बाजूला द्या आणि त्याला एक रायटर द्या, एक रीडर द्या. That becomes a very general needs of, so this particular GR has general needs of students with disability, general guidelines, and second one is the disability specific guidelines. So it's very important that one needs to have a disability specific needs. ते सगळे जे needs आहे 21 types of disability ते लिहिलेले आहे. For example, a low vision student require a bigger font question paper in the examination. तर ही त्याची डिसेबिलिटी स्पेसिफिक नीड्स झाली. तर आपण ते आरामात करू शकतो, त्याला काही जास्त हे नाही लागत. पण ॲटिट्यूड जे आहे युनिव्हर्सिटीच्या अधिकाऱ्यांचा, ते कधीतरी असं वाटतं त्यांना की आम्ही कशाला करावं, आम्हाला पहिले GR दाखवा, कोणता पॉईंट दाखवा, हे लिहिलंय का त्याच्यामध्ये, ते लिहिलंय का त्याच्यामध्ये. ते पण बरोबर आहे एक ह्यांनी. पण ॲज अ डिसेबिलिटी जर त्या पर्सनला आहे आणि ही त्याची जे नीड आहे, तर UGC गाईडलाईन्स सेज दॅट यू हॅव टू फुलफिल द needs of the students with disability. So special provisions in admissions and promotional activity. त्याच्यानंतर disability specific assessment, examination, evaluation. आणि हे सगळे जे गोष्टी आहेत ते आपण आरामात करू शकतो. आणि यू कॅन लुक ॲट द GR ऑफ द पर्सन विथ डिसेबिलिटी. द सेकंड पॉइंट आहे आपला द थर्ड चॅप्टर जे आहे, तर ते त्याच्यामध्ये असं म्हटलेलं आहे की just go to the next slide please. तुम्हाला येत आहे का थर्ड चॅप्टर, दिसत आहे तुम्हाला? Chapter is basically on the accessible information and communication learning resources. So it talks about ICT. ICT means computer. All the website are accessible. तर तुम्ही बघा तुमची वेबसाईट accessible आहे का, assistive technology तुम्ही दिलेले आहे का. फोर्थ चॅप्टर टॉक्स अबाउट इन्क्लुसिव्ह मोबिलिटी अँड इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर. म्हणजे आता तो क्लासरूम मध्ये व्यवस्थित पोहोचला पाहिजे. तो आपला त्याच्याकडे कॅम्पसमध्ये GPS मॅपिंग सिस्टम जर आपण केला, तर तो असं मोबाईलमध्ये आपण कार चालवताना बघतो की इथे आपल्याला पोहोचायचं, तर आपण ते डेस्टिनेशन लावतो आणि पोहोचतो. तसंच स्टुडंट विथ डिसेबिलिटी जर व्हिज्युअली इम्पेअर्ड असला, तर तो आपल्या ह्याच्यामध्ये पोहोचू शकतो थ्रू द नॅव्हिगेशन ॲप. तसंच चॅप्टर 5 इज अबाउट युनिव्हर्सल ॲक्सेसिबिलिटी इन बिल्ट इन एन्व्हायरमेंट. म्हणजे साईट प्लॅनिंग. म्हणजे आपण आता आम्ही ॲज अ IXS राईट्स मिशन वी वर वर्किंग विथ 15 universities of Maharashtra, and we were meeting all the registrar of 15 universities to discuss that how their buildings are accessible. So we help them to prepare an access audit map, and we also train their engineers to do access audit with the help of some government people and also empaneled people. And this helped them to identify the barriers, and they prepared the ramps and all these spaces in accessible manner. So all the buildings, including canteen, hostels, everything should be accessible. Chapter number 6 talks about accessible curriculum, which is again based on the GR. You can also implement the GR of 28 August 2018 of Government of Maharashtra, which talks about accessible curriculum and teaching learning systems. So that is also very important to make. So the unit of inclusion is classroom. जर आपला क्लासरूमच इन्क्लुसिव्ह नसेल, तर आपण आपल्या मुलांना कसं काय शिकवणार. तर इट्स व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट फॉर अ टीचर जेव्हा ते कोर्स प्लॅनिंग करतात, तेव्हा डिसेबल्ड मुलं किती आहेत त्यांच्याशी चर्चा करावी, त्यांच्याशी एक मीटिंग घ्यावी, त्यांचे नीड्स इन्क्लूड करून ते कोर्स मटेरियलमध्ये पण ऍड करावे आणि त्यांना ते तसं शिकवावं. हे खूप आवश्यक आहे. त्याच्यामध्ये युनिव्हर्सल डिझाईन ऑफ लर्निंग अँड क्रिएटिंग इक्विटेबल क्लासरूम बिकम्स अ व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट rule. And there should be an internal policy for inclusive curriculum and teaching. So हे सगळे UGC guidelines मध्ये दिलेले आहे आणि ही काळाची गरज आहे. आणि as a Supreme Court judgment and also the guidelines one has to implement. Chapter 7 talks about accessible assessment and examination system. So I already told you that there is a GR on examination provision for 21 types of disability, चाहे blood related disability हो, चाहे hemophobia हो, चाहे dwarfism हो, किंवा कुठला पण डिसेबिलिटी हो, पण त्याच्यामध्ये एक accessible assessment आणि examination system ची फार गरज आहे. आणि ह्याची सगळे डिटेल्स त्याच्यामध्ये दिलेले आहे. Like extra time of 20 minutes per hour or giving them writer or scribe becomes a very important component for provision for the examination systems, and also creating a flexible assessment process. Then chapter 8 is accessibility of resources and services, which involves library facilities in accessible format, grievance redressal mechanism, and general provisions for the persons with disability. So in Tata Institute, we have a library which is called MK Tata Library, and we have all computers with JAWS softwares. They all can come and study. And similarly, other universities can also do that. Then chapter 9 talks about the governance mechanism. So what we want to say here is the IXS Rights Mission as a field action project. We have created a disability policy for higher education. Professor Jain is also part of the policy, framing the policy in terms of creating a governance mechanism that every teacher will be responsible for bringing the inclusion in their classrooms and accessible environment. So, so this policy has been submitted to the government of Maharashtra. So it is from entry to exit, right from the admission to the exit, and it talks about various kinds of resources, services, and institutionalizing disability as an inclusive framework in the policy. So the next, this last slide is on one of the last, the second last slide is on inclusive campus. So I just showed you the video. It is all about coming together and bonding together with the principle of social cohesion, genuinely respecting each other, whether you're transgender or whether you're a person with disability or whether you're a person from the Dalit or tribal or any background. How, in my classroom, there was a fight between a Dalit student and a woman with disability. And she said, he is not sensitive to me. And how should I handle that problem? So, as a teacher, as a facilitator, I had to create a harmony between the two because they all disability and differences are intersecting and they are creating conflicts. So how as an individual professor or I can create a harmony and a non-threatening environment for each other to survive, to live, to study together, to enjoy. So that creating a harmony and that creating us bonding and social cohesion is a lot of work and a lot of conflicting work one has to do. A teacher has responsibility to do that in order to create that conflicts. Otherwise, there'll be complaints after the complaints. So the idea is to create a harmonized environment, an inclusive culture in the campus, and see to it that you create a guest house, conference facilities, cultural sports. There was a blind cricket we organized in the World Disability Day, and different wheelchair crickets we organized to see to it that you create a harmony between disabled and non-disabled as a space. And then you allow them to intermingle and learn with each other, enjoy with each other, have a good life in the campus. Chapter 10 is all about the governance and monitoring of accessibility and inclusive practices. Accessibility and inclusive practices through institutional governance. And this is what I was talking about. So when we created this policy, we just saw to it that all stakeholders are part of the policy implementation. The whole responsibility, if you look at, is on the equal opportunity cell, and there's a one person sitting over there. How a one person can take care of 50, 100, 200 students with disability in the campus, in the university. It's very, very tough, and it's not possible. So in the policy, what we have done is we have framed the responsibilities of each stakeholder so that in harmony, there's no burden, but one in a collaborative manner can institutionalize this inclusive structure in a university, in a college, in a higher education system, so that there is a governance and monitoring mechanism of accessibility and inclusive culture is being promoted. So we propose that in 5 years' time, if we implement this policy, we will be create an inclusive environment around the universities and an equitable system in the universities to make an inclusive culture in our universities and higher education institutions, and more respect and harmony to accept people with disabilities with as per their strengths, as per their unique capabilities, and respect them as individuals, as persons of importance and significance to the society. So this is what the assessment reforms are there in NEP. There are various equitable and inclusive education and gender inclusion funds. So we talk about disability inclusion fund in the university and how disadvantaged people, regions should be notified, and we should create various kinds of schools inclusive with the inclusive environment so that you can include persons with disability in schools, and then how one can create a very important space where dialogue for disability and inclusion for persons with disability in higher education system. So one of the highlights of this particular NEP is also changing the recruitment of teachers and see to it that the special educators are also part of it. And there is an accreditation program where persons with disabilities are also included in the system. The provisions under the RPWD Act and will be told by Jen sir, so I will not go into it. And what at the end of the day, what we want is an inclusion fund for people with disabilities, resource centers, and multidisciplinary approach and disability accommodation, reasonable accommodation, assistive devices and technology should be developed by engineering and other kind of colleges, and science and technology tools can be developed. We are working with various engineering colleges and they have developed various apps for persons with deafness and persons with other disabilities. And we are very happy that everybody is responding very positively. And we were, and IXS Rights Mission was instrumental to bring about a change by developing a disability policy in higher education for Government of Maharashtra. So we are very happy, and we see as a step towards bringing inclusion in the higher education institutes of the country. So we believe in learning with no boundaries and creating and rising above all barriers and creating that social inclusion, bonding, and very genuine environment for learning and healthy learning and growing as an individual and respectful citizen in the country. Thank you so much.
Very much, ma'am. Ma'am has enlightened us about disability is not the problem, but inaccessibility is the problem.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
She informed about IXS Right Mission, PISS Mumbai, which is amazing initiative. I hope that this mission will enlighten numerous minds for inclusive growth of our mission. She also elaborated fundamental principles of NEP, transforming curriculum and pedagogy, UGC accessibility guidelines, and many more things. Once again, I thank Dr. Vaishali Kolhe for illustrating your thoughts and sharing your precious time with us. Thank you, ma'am.
Now I'd like to invite Sri Surendranath Babar sir to propose vote of thanks for the session.
On behalf of the UGC-Scheme for Persons with Disability, Department of Sociology, Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusion Policies, Internet Quality Assurance Cell, SHIVAJI University, Kolhapur. I very much thankful to Dr. Vaishali Kolhe ma'am, and I also thank to all the participants and volunteers of the conference. Thank you. And I declare that this plenary session is over. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much. Can I stop my video? I'm not able to stop, I think. It stopped? My slide is stopped, na?